I'm a rule follower.
I am going to call the meeting to order. Has everyone had a chance to look over the agenda? Workshop agenda? If so, do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? If not, all in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say, oh, that's right. Well, they can hear pretty good though, can't they?
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So they
Yeah,
can,
they can hear good, Dan.
opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, Brock.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Brock Wilson, Mid-America Sports Construction. We're based out of Kansas City, actually southeast side of Kansas City, Lee Summit, Missouri. A little bit about our company. We were founded in 1993 as a golf course contractor. So we built golf courses all over the nation. I mean, big earth-moving projects up to the the grass and the fine details of all that. As the 90s progressed, we got more and more into athletic fields. Had a bunch of people calling us, "Hey, can you build this athletic field?" And we said, "We know how to build a golf course. It's much smaller scale, but growing organisms, things like that." So we got into the athletic portion of construction. And since then, our business has kind of lopsided. We kind of went from about 90% golf in the early years, and we're about 90% athletic fields now. We still dabble in golf, still build some big projects, but most of our projects are athletic fields. Some of the stuff that you guys probably be pretty familiar with is, we've done most of the fields at K-State University, including their natural grass fields, their synthetic fields. KU, we've done a large portion of their fields, and then we've done work all over the nation. Grand Park out in Indianapolis, we did all of their athletic fields. Kerrville, Texas, Cuba, I think I looked the other day, I think we're on like our 705th project, which those are about 2 to 3 fields average each. So our capabilities are vast, right? When I first got a call from John and Rick, talking about some synthetic fields, possibly a track, softball field, a bunch of ideas, just brainstorming. And so we kind of went through all of that and discussed all those possibilities, and we kind of came back to the natural grass portion of your football field and where it's at right now. And basically it's just kind of been not upcut. So the thing with the natural grass field is as you guys know, I mean, you have so many moving parts. You have the dirt, you have basically the organics, and you have the grass on top of it. So over time, what happens with the natural grass field is you'll get rain or you'll get a drought, and then you're still out there playing on that field. And so basically you're hurting that grass, you're killing that grass, and then all you're on is soil. And so especially on your field, what's happened is you have a bunch of valleys and craters on your field, and so you're not shedding the water like you need to. Basically you want to shed that water just like the old fields were, where you get it over to the sideline as quick as possible and let it drain through there. You're not playing over there, you don't really care if that tears up the grass. But you want to keep that main playing field is good and growing at this optimal level. And so over time, you've basically created these great big valleys and ruts, and then you hold water there. Well, if it's not draining water, it's not optimal for growing grass. And so we kind of went back to the drawing board after looking at a couple options, and we came up with some ideas and what it would take to fix that field. And our solution right now, to be minimally invasive and as cost effective as possible. There's many ways to do a natural grass field, but basically what we came back and the easiest on Nickerson's pocketbook would be scrape the organics off there, basically scrape all the grass off. Dispose of that grass on site and anything growing, keep the good topsoil there, basically re-crown that and roll it where it all locked in nice, and then put sod on top of that. The reason we went with sod is seed, you don't have enough time to grow that in, especially if you're going to have football this year. It's not going to take, especially with weather and not knowing what weather's going to do. I'm not willing to put that chance out there. So we put a sport mix there. For now, that's like a Kentucky fescue mix. Looking back at it right now, there's some other options that I would probably recommend better, especially for this region. I'd recommend like a cold tolerant Bermuda. I think that's going to give you a better long-standing solution, just because you guys know, Bermuda is very very tolerant and likes to grow. I'd look at a cold tolerant Bermuda though, something like a Tahoma 31. It's kind of a new breed, but it's got about probably an extra 45 or 60 days out of dormancy of your regular, iron horse or anything like that they're putting on sports fields right now. So that's what we recommended was coming back on sodding that field, and then I'd look at working with Nickerson and your facilities guys to kind of come up with a regimen on how to maintain that field every year, top dressing with sand, looking at those problem areas where you're going to have ruts and stuff like that, and trying to figure out a solution that's going to give you guys a long-term solution. So I have some handouts. Basically, it's kind of a simpler format of what I've given these guys, but it's a little bit of our background.
That's this thing.
Kind of some of the proposal we went through from the first proposal to the proposal we have now out there, which was to resurface the track and the football field, but they're broken out separate, so you can see both of those options. And then, some of the pictures of your facility right now, which obviously you guys have a better idea of what kind of state it is than I am. Any questions? Comments? Concerns?
With this all being said and done, we really don't know exactly what we have for quote unquote a sprinkler system. Is that something you work with, or is that something outside?
Yeah, so we have all our own irrigation specialists. I mean, doing these big golf courses, we have guys that are doing, hundreds and hundreds of acres of irrigation. So all of our guys are very certified and very, we would turnkey that if needed. Without seeing as-builts or seeing that thing on or knowing what's going on with it, or even looking at the heads and stuff, it's kind of hard to give you a recommendation on exactly what's needed. Now, if you're looking, for this field to last you 10 plus years, it's probably time to readdress that, especially since you're going to have everything scraped anyways. It's not going to be that hard to go ahead and check the pipe. And that's something we could work with you and put a contingency plan together. Basically say, hey, if you need new pipe, it's going to be X. If you need new heads, it's going to be X, and all of those things. But now would probably be the time to look into those avenues.
I'm gonna guess we're gonna need new pipe.
Yeah, I'm guessing that field is 20 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Probably the last time it was touched.
You're gonna need new sprinkler heads,
Oh, absolutely.
basically, I mean.
That's
every
the same
single one.
field I played on, so that's been a while. But
At least
And the-
5 years, right, Brent?
And the technology's changed a lot with the heads.
Sure.
Obviously you don't need as many heads as you used to, because you have much better coverage and it's all dialed in. So it's a little more cost effective. Obviously, an escalator effect,
Right.
but it's not as hard on the pocketbook as it used to be.
You said you would use sod. Because one other thing that we've been kicking around is also wanting to create that, and I'm just throwing ideas out here, is creating the soccer field into the football fields, making it a multi-purpose use field with seating. And would maintenance and taking care of it is when soccer season would be going on. Is that even something we could do or not do, or is it? Talk about that.
Yeah, with seed, it's going to be a headache. It's really going to be a headache, and it's going to be expensive for somebody like me to come maintain it. Basically, I have to have somebody sitting in a hotel just babysitting this grass. It's kind of nice because you have an agronomist on staff or on site that sees when fungicide or anything's hitting it that's wrong. But with sod, it's pretty simple. You lay that sod, you pump the water to it, and you walk away. And then you can roll it and mow it, but it's a lot simpler.
What is the time frame as far as laying the sod to when we can play on the sod?
I feel safe telling you probably 6 weeks. You could probably we've done even sprigs where we've gotten on it before then, but without knowing exactly what the weather's going to do and all of those things, I would recommend 6 to 8 weeks before you get on it.
With that being said, also then, so we know, since we're already grading, and could we change the crown of that field to work it with soccer?
Yep, absolutely. The one thing is soccer, for the most part, likes a really flat pitch. And so with that flat pitch, you're not gonna shed as much water. And so you stand a chance of having those valleys and craters a lot quicker than you would with that football field. So what I see on this size of high school on a natural grass field is usually you extend that. You don't go with a 0.5% or 1% slope, make that, 1.5%, 2%. So you're shedding a little bit more water. Nothing like you used to see in the old days where it's 3, 4, 5% slope, but you're kind of have that happy medium where you're still shedding the optimal amount of water, but the soccer players aren't really complaining about it.
Okay.
What's the water requirements between your two different kind of grasses, the Kentucky versus the Bermuda? How much less for Bermuda, or?
They're similar. Bermuda's going to be a little more tolerant, especially in western, say southwestern Kansas in the middle of summer. Kentucky's probably going to want a little bit more water. Nothing crazy. I don't think you guys are, going to be paying double or watering it double. But it's going to want some more water. It's just a cooler season pass.
Brooke, how much dirt are we gonna need and where would we get it?
Right now, I have basically plugged in for zero dirt, basically to use all cut and fill that you have right there and remount it. It wouldn't be a bad idea to add some black dirt, maybe with some organics in it, but right now I have nothing plugged in.
Okay, all right. Do you have a different tier levels of sprinkler systems? I mean, do you have like 3 different tiers or 2, or, I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, just on your heads. I mean,
Yeah.
I would recommend those pipes being built the same way no matter what. Your heads, there's multiple levels, all the way up to a heavy industrial, big thrower that we've used before, that I wouldn't recommend here. I'd recommend, if you said the most expensive is a level 5 and the least expensive is a level 1, I'd recommend that probably 2 to 3 level
Okay.
area.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you could set up a system with a low gallon well that still would be able to cover and consistently maintain the field.
Yeah, I'd like to see the actual parameters of what you guys have right now. Being a low gallon well, you might need a tank, and that's not too big a deal. It's just an added expense. But I'd like to see what those parameters are, and I could give you guys a better recommendation on what you would need. I've worked with places such as where was that, McNess City, and they had to go to watering twice a day instead of dumping that water on it once a day. But we can figure that out. We got all the people and staff to look at.
How long does it take you when you, let's say, after football season and we get on, how long does it take you to do that whole thing? Irrigation? the whole
Yeah,
thing?
I'd be looking at conservatively, telling you, with weather delay and stuff like that you don't know, I would say that'd probably be about a 10-day job.
10?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
for the football field?
Yeah, ideally we could get him out of there in a week.
No kidding. Okay, then what if we then turned right around and had you guys do the track? How long does that, to remove the track and do the, do the surface base, how long does that take?
The base too?
Yeah.
So I'd give him a couple different prices. One would be just the spray on top, which I think your asphalt's, it's gone.
Yeah.
I think you'd be putting a Band-Aid on something, so
Yeah.
I'd recommend that. So the base, you're looking at about 3 to 4 weeks to where you're paved with asphalt back on top. Now, the crucial time is that asphalt needs about 45 days of cure time to basically get all the oil and everything out of that asphalt before you put a top coat of whatever running track material you want to look at on top of that. So that really adds a crucial timeline in there, right? But you're about 3 to 4 weeks on construction, and then you're about another week and a half for that top coat, with about 45 days in between for that asphalt.
So another week, after 45 days, another week and a half.
Yes, sir.
What do you do, so you lay sod down and you do the track? Will hopefully the water and everything will be low enough where doing the track won't disturb watering the football field if we had to.
Correct. I mean, ideally, those heads would be locked where they're not hardly touching the track. You could lock those heads where they won't get over the track, and you'll just have to watch wind and things like that, if that's what you're getting at. But I mean, you have some crucial timelines there when you're paving your asphalt and when you're putting your top coat on for your running track material.
Yeah.
That's really when you don't want any moisture over there.
Well, I don't want to come into a dry spring and we need water and we
Right.
can't water.
Right. We've had to do it before, definitely out in western Texas, western Kansas. You dump the water to it, and then you come in and you pave, your either your asphalt or your top coat. And then, that's an 8-hour process, and, you're working in thirds. So basically, once you get off of that, it's gonna tack up really quick. You can go ahead and go back and water.
Now, do you have the type of irrigation that is I think it's called drip or something. It's underneath.
I don't recommend this on
Not on a grass field.
on this system. If you had a root zone system or something that was sand based, then that would be okay idea. But
Okay.
probably not on this system. The water just basically, if you put a drip, it's not going to venture out of that soil more than that.
You'll have strips in between that it'll be dead. Just won't get it. Just for fun, because it's been talked about numerous different times through different boards, as far as looking at a softball field. There's lots of questions we don't know. First off, we don't even know if we have enough water to do what we want to do right now, let alone another field. But would this, say we had to take this, grade this down, I mean, would be, what do you think our grade is now? Just the ballpark.
I honestly can't. I'd be,
Or do you think are we removing a lot of dirt, a little dirt?
no, you're not. You'd be removing very little.
Okay.
Once you got that top, once you
All
got
right, well, that
grass
just-
off. Now, we had talked about, when we originally started talking synthetic and things like that, you have tons of spoils there to go over and build your softball field. But just removing the grass and stuff like that, there's not enough dirt really, I think, to make what you would want, over in this location, like a baseball field.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you wanted to move that somewhere else, there might be, or you could look at it.
That's what he was referring to, so yeah.
Mhm.
Is that where they stole the dirt for the
Yeah,
baseball field?
yeah.
Right.
So you need some good soil to
Yeah.
go back in there for sure.
Okay.
Probably quite a bit of it.
Brock, I'm being honest, because this is not what I would want to do, but there's been talk about if we didn't get around to doing the football field, just doing the track, and then coming back and doing the football field later. How, and building a bridge, have you guys done that? Is that recommended? Have you seen problems? What kind of stuff would we be looking at if we did that?
Yeah, so I see a lot of school boards, especially that are scared of that, especially over a brand new track, and I get it.
Yeah.
Think of every single one of the synthetic fields we've built, which is, north of 500. At the high school level, we've went over a track.
No kidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
That many?
Absolutely.
And have you had to come back and repair the track like in a
No.
year or
No,
two? Because
we've never had an issue, and I wish I had some. Actually, I might have some pictures if you want to look on my phone. I know it's weird times and touching people's stuff. Basically, what you do is you come in, you put in. It's about 2-inch padding down. It's a playground pad, and you put it out about 12 feet wide. Bring in 3/4-inch plywood, padding, plywood, and then depending on how much you're going to bring out, then we'll actually put either sand or dirt on top of that whole thing.
Mhm.
We never had one issue as long as the track is built right.
Yeah.
Now we've went over some tracks that are 30, 35 years old that needed to be stabilized and they weren't, and we've seen some settlement, but we knew it was going to happen
Yeah.
too, just based off their cores.
Yeah. But so if we had you do a brand new track, if we came back in 6 months to a year, you wouldn't really.
I'd take all liability on that. I'd say that it'd be on us.
Okay.
Because I feel confident there would be no issues.
Because we've been told a lot that that can just not be done, and
Oh, no, I mean,
Or they advise against it.
They highly advise against it because of
I
the
think I have
damage.
about 15 projects going on right now, and I would say over 10 of them are going over a track.
Oh,
And
man.
then you're talking about taking all the soil out about 6 to 8 inches, and then you're bringing 6 to 8 inches of rock back over that bridge.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Anything else we need to know?
I don't know, you talked about the track. It's kind of hard to bring grass samples in, but I have some track samples if you guys want to
Yeah.
know about them at all. Okay. You have several different layers of track or classifications. What I've talked about with these guys is a base mat. And so basically a base mat is rubber and polymer, and it's paved in place right on top of the asphalt. It's similar to what you guys have right now, except for it's a little nicer and newer.
It used to be.
The cracks.
And then a structural spray on top of that. And so basically what I like to tell people is think of that spray as like painting your house. You're basically protecting the siding. We've talked about colors and things like that. I like a color just because you can tell as that color starts to wear down, you can start to see that black come through. It's time to probably respray that. You can usually get about 3 sprays on top of a base mat before you need to probably scrape it and go in with a new base mat. But there's many different levels. This is great for a high school this size. It's probably the best bang for the buck, I think. And we probably do the majority of these base mat structural sprays. Some people try to sell you on a sealed coat. Basically, it's being sprayed twice with a different solution. I don't really like it for our temperament, just because of the freeze-thaw cycle. If you ever were to see water get in there and you have a sealed system, can't get out.
Yeah.
And so I like the permeable, which is what I quoted you guys. In case any water does get in there, it does have a way to make its way out.
Now, those different samples, is there quite a bit of difference of price on all those different samples?
These, there's really not. I mean, from a base mat, which there's still high schools that do a base mat without a structural spray. I don't really recommend it, but there are. To a spray, on average, you're talking probably 30,000. To the next step up, you're talking probably another 25,000.
What's the next step up do versus the spray?
You start
Spray.
talking about a sandwich system, which is a lot of times either paved with a poured in place on top of it, or a BV system, and it jumps dramatically. It's probably almost double.
Okay.
I don't think the performance. I don't think the safety's any better on these. I think it's strictly performance. You'll start to see these sandwich or full pour systems a lot at the collegiate level.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot at the high school level, unless you're talking 6A.
Yeah.
high schools.
Yeah. Okay. So you quoted just that one that's in there that is sprayed.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you have a pave system first. So
Yeah.
right on top of your asphalt, you would go in with
Yeah.
with this, pave this in place, then you come back and spray,
Spray
it,
it.
and then you put your lines on it.
Yeah. But that's the one you quoted was.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? As soon as you walk out the door, we'll have 25.
Well, another thing is, I don't know what timeline you're looking at, but we're doing a track this year, Nest City. No, I'm sorry, west of Nest City, almost to Dodge,
Cimarron?
Kinsley.
Okay.
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah, and so we're doing a similar deal. We're basically completely rebuilding the base, and then we're going to pave the asphalt. Well, I don't think we're having enough time to put that top coat on before football season, if we do have football again. So basically, we're going to come back in on their off weeks and go ahead and pave that, and then come back on another off week and spray it. So that's another option, is you can kind of tier that too.
Okay. Did you do anything with their football field?
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
they just working on track right now.
But when will that track be kind of done before the spray? When we have that, so I can just run out there and
Yeah.
And look.
I would guess the latter part of July.
okay.
Now we built Lacrosse's track, which is just outside Ness City. We built
Yeah,
that
you did
originally,
lacrosses?
and then we resprayed that last year. Ness City we're doing right now. Ness City is a little interesting. They did decided to not do anything with the base, so we're just doing the top coat. Not really a recommendation. I mean, it'd be very similar to your project.
Yeah, if
so
we
you
did it.
kind of see what would happen if you didn't do anything with the base. You're still gonna have cracks in it and stuff.
Okay. Anything else, guys? Gals?
Did,
Rob, go ahead.
did you have the price difference between the Kentucky grass and the Bermuda grass in there?
Not off the top of my head. We're doing one right now in central Missouri, and it wasn't much different. I want to say it was
Okay.
about $5,000 difference. Now the thing I will tell you is depending on what breed of Bermuda you go with, it's really about that time where you got to figure out if they're going to have it supplied. And so that's kind of one of those things, depending on what breed you want, you kind of put a order in for it. Well, especially the Tahoma, since it's such a new breed, they're running out of it. Now there's some others such as Iron Horse or Patriot or things like that that are going to be real similar to that cool season grass.
Is there enough seed for the Tahoma if we decided on it soon?
Can't see Tahoma.
I know, I mean, is
Sod.
it sod? Yeah,
As
Is that
of last
available?
week, as of last week, it was.
yeah, okay. Any other questions for Brock?
I'll leave you with some information. My card's
Okay.
in all of these in case
Excellent.
anybody does have any questions. Feel free to send me an email, call me, whatever you'd like. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Brock. All right, are you ready for Brett? He's here.
I am. I'm gonna get something to drink. You guys, Gordon, you good? Everybody?
You can get black dirt before KDOT does.
That's what I was thinking, if they needed a lot of dirt.
They're gonna need a lot of dirt.
And this is Brett Weens.
Brad,
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
thanks for coming.
My pleasure. You guys have enough information?
I do. Just so you know.
Yeah. Well, we do things a little bit differently than a lot of times what you'll see in a situation like this. I like to go through what you have right now, and that's. Do you think you want the book?
Please.
Yeah, we go through everything that you have and then allow you guys to make a decision. Our goal is to answer every question you have, and hopefully some of them you didn't know you had. And then allow you guys to make a decision on what is best for your school, for your facilities, for your budget, for what your quality goals are for the field, what your usage goals are for the field. All those different things come into play in order to make a successful project. And so a lot of, Mr. Blosser and Mr. McLean have heard me say a lot of times, and I don't mean to be avoiding questions, but a lot of the answers to the questions are, it depends on what you want to see, how you want to use this. There isn't always, this is what you should do. It's, okay, tell me what you're trying to achieve, and then we can work backwards from there and give you something that you'll be happy with for a long time. To that goal, do you guys have any questions, anything that you specifically want to talk about from what I've given you guys? Do you want me to, I can be here all night, but do you want me to go through this? How do you want to proceed here?
I was thinking if you want to share copies with them, kind of like what you did for us at the high school,
Okay.
I think would be really helpful.
Okay. This is a paper copy of the electronic file that
Thank you.
that I think you guys already have. When we went through this with Dr. Stroh, Mr. McLean, Mr. Blosser, what do we take, 2 hours? So,
But you don't have to take that long.
right.
You don't have to.
Understood. So, we had several requests from school staff, just some things related to what we're doing. Those are listed there at the top. I love input like that. I love things that, one of them was, well, the top one, 120 volt power to the southeast corner of the field. I will probably never see the pep rally or whatever it was that they're wanting smoke for, and and they want power there. So that's those sort of things, the day-to-day usage, how you use the field, what you'd like to see, what makes your life better. That sort of input I like to see. But we'll go through those as we continue through this. There's several things that I like to see get done correctly. If we're going to do a renovation, something that we're going to start over, we're going to take everything out, we're going to grade it, we're going to look at every single thing, all of it new. The number one thing to get correct is the grade, because on top of that grade, we can change irrigation systems every year if you want to. We can go back and forth from Bluegrass to Buffalo to Fescue to Bermuda to whatever you want to do, if the grade's what you need it to be. If the water gets off the field, if it's safe, if it's smooth, those sort of things. If there is looking for a whiteboard, I always have but the way that we measure that, if you look at figure 1, it'll have a picture of your field with a bunch of 6s and 7s and 5s on it. Oh, first thing that we did, the first thing that we did was take laser measurements of the field to give us elevations. What this does, we have a tool that projects a laser beam across the field. It's a level beam. We have another tool that receives that beam and measures from the beam to the ground. And that measurement is in feet and hundredths of a foot, not feet and inches. So when we start doing math, feet and inches don't really work very well. If we can get to hundredths, it's a lot easier to do the math. So if you picture that, a low number like down the middle of the field, those 5s, a low number is a high elevation because it's shorter distance from the beam to the ground. If you get close to the drains along the sidelines, or the one of them is an 8 on the the home side, the bottom of the picture over to the left is an 8-0. So if we go straight up to the middle of the field, we have a 5-10 right there. So that tells us that from the drain to the crown of the field at that point is 2.9 feet higher. The crown is 2.9 feet above the drain. These numbers aren't sea level elevations, they aren't on a benchmark, they're just your football field relative to themselves. If we look at, these are all, the ones that are on a consistent spacing there are a 50-foot grid. Again, I graduated from Inman, not Nickerson, I gotta keep the math easy. So, if we keep it on 50s, that's half of 100, it's easy to do the math. Hey, yes, thank you. It's my dad, the teacher, and we gotta have something to draw on right with. So what we're doing here is, if we have this drawing of your field, I gotta draw my stand back down now. What you actually have is something like this. We have the drains here, we have our track over here, the crown of the field up here. So this is our 590, or no, 510 is what it was, right?
Yeah.
510. Up here, this was our 8-0 over here. Oh, if we were gonna build a new field from scratch, we'd shoot for a 1% grade. That means in every 100 feet, if we start at the low point, the high point doesn't matter. If we go 100 feet, we wanna go up 1 foot for every 100 feet that we go out. So in this situation, usually from the track to the track is about 200. Again, I'm gonna try to keep our math simple here. This is not quite 100 feet. I think I've got on here, yeah, it's about 90 feet from this drain to the center of the field. But if we use those numbers, your home side is about a 1.95% slope, and the visitor side is slightly flatter, 1.67. So what that's telling us, simple terms, this field is steeper than what we might build on a new field. Typically we're shooting for 1%. Is steep good or bad? It's usable, and what you have is fine. It gives us a couple of options though. One, we know we've got a lot of dirt in here.
Yeah.
So as we progress, that's gonna become important to know how much dirt is inside that track. Do we have enough? Do we need to bring some in? Do we need to get rid of some? But for right now, we're talking about what is your field right now today. Those existing conditions are that it's just shy of a 2% slope from our lowest spot to our highest spot. So if we talk about from the track up, we have a 630 to our 510. So now from here, if we were going to draw a straight line up to that top, getting darn close to 1% now, right? Because we've got 1 foot, we've got a 1.10 per foot plane, but we're getting pretty close there. So if we keep going through it, concerns that we have with the grade, you know, it is what it is. It's not, both teams are playing on the same field. We trade directions every quarter. It's not, what's there isn't, the fact that it's 2% isn't particularly dangerous. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
The slope from the players' boxes, if we look on your map there, right in the middle, we've got a, you know, so 690 and a 7.0. Those, both from the field and from the players' boxes, it dives pretty hard into the two or the 4 drainage inlets there along the straightaways on the track. So a drain being low is easier than high. If it's too high, you can't get water to go uphill. A friend of mine says it takes very talented water to go uphill. So if it's low, that's okay. We can work with it. We can change that easily. Some solutions that we could talk about. You know, is this a reason to totally tear up the field? What's the answer? Well, it depends. What do you want to see? Do you want to, what kind of budget do you have? What kind of quality level do you want to see on your field? It's, a lot of people ask me what I would do, and I said, well, I can tell you what I would do, but I'm judging from my budget. I'm judging from my quality standards. So it's your field, and we want that to be what you guys want. So there is some other grade concerns. If we look, for example, behind the goalposts, it doesn't show up on 50-foot stations very well, but it's really hollow back behind the goalposts. Again, we don't even play football there. But if we want to get rid of some soil, for example, out of the middle of that field, we've got somewhere to go with it. If we want to flatten this grade out, we can take soil from up here and move it to down over here. We could flatten it out. We could raise drains up. We could put drains, we could take these that are there now and raise them up, flatten this thing out, and get you pretty close to 1%. We could put channel drains along the track here to catch that water. And then, remember I was talking about from here to here, we're pretty close to 1%. We could connect A and B. This would come down a little. This would, we'd fill this low area here. And you have several options there, from use what you got to make something really nice with channel drains along the track. I think the amount of soil that is currently inside the track is very usable, with the possible exception of this channel drain idea. We might need to bring some dirt in for that, simply because we got a lot to fill in here. There's also two different methods we can use to fix these problems. So the reason I've been trying to keep the cap on the pin is so we can draw this. I'm going to do two different scenarios, one on each side of the field. The simplest way, if we want to flatten this out, is take some off the top, put it right over here. Okay. Now, this is a very basic drawing, but you're getting the idea that we're just flipping that over to this side. It's somewhat inexpensive compared to the other way. The problem with that is we've got in the top 6 to 8 inches of this football field, we have our best soil. Topsoil is the top soil. Okay? So if all we do is flip this over here, we've taken all of our best soil and putting it over here where we don't play a whole lot of football. And we've taken this soil that's down below, and we've made that the soil that's between the hash marks, where all the activity happens, and we're trying to grow grass in what has potential to be lesser soils. So part of our analysis that we did, I'm going to skip over to, it's got a figure number, but it says Servitec Labs real big on the top of 2 pages towards the back. Part of the analysis that we did was to take soil tests. It's figure 5 and figure 6. But we did a soil test from 0 to 8 inches, which is what I consider the bulk of our root zone. But then we also did a soil test from 8 to 16 inches. So let's say that we take this off, flip it over here, we're getting an example, we're getting a snapshot, if you will, of what is that soil that we're left with. So there's a lot to talk about here, but if you look at the numbers that are different, soil pH on both of these is really high. If we start getting the 8s and 8.4s, it's really high. High soil pH makes it difficult for the plants to absorb nutrients, to take the roots, to take those nutrients out of the soil. But if you just compare the two, we've got much less nitrogen. Nitrogen is an easy fix. Organic matter in our 0 to 8 is 2.9. If we can be in the 3 range, we're pretty happy. We've got less than half that on the lower parts. Phosphorus, potassium, those levels are all significantly lower. Everything that we want to be low is higher in the deeper soils. Everything we want to be high is lower. So can we amend them? Yes. But what I prefer to do, and I'll try to show you on the other half of the picture, is I want to take all of that topsoil, take that top 6 inches off of it, make a big pile of it over here. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to make what we want to see, except make it 6 inches low. Then we'll take this topsoil, we'll top it on, put it back on the top. We've got the topsoil on the top of the field, where it belongs. Do we need to do some amendments? Sure, yeah, we still need to do some amendments, but this is much, much better soil. As you might imagine, there's a lot more work involved with doing that, but you're going to get a better product in the end. So back to my question, what do you want to see? Do you want to see, use it like it is? I'm fine with that. We can make something really nice with what it is. Do you want to make it better and just flop the soil over to the side? Okay. Do you want to strip the topsoil, put a subgrade on it, put the topsoil back? You can do that too. What do you want to see with your field? Okay, page 2.
I see how that 2 hours went up.
Are we going faster, Dr. Stroh?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Oh. I like it that she's honest with me. Did you hear the excitement in her voice too? Oh, we look at the water supply as well. If number one thing, if a turf manager can't put water on the grass, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter what kind of grass it is. It doesn't matter what the grade is. If you cannot effectively get water on every square foot of that field, forget anything else you do. We can get really fancy with types of grass, with fungicide programs, with all sorts of expensive things that sound really good and take special licenses to apply and all this. If we can't get water on it, it does not matter. So you look at the water supply and irrigation very close. The water supply currently comes from a battery of 2 wells. The state's definition of a battery is between 2 and 4 wells pumping into a common distribution system. The state also requires that any well that irrigates more than 2 contiguous acres or any sports field to have a meter, and they allot a certain amount of water that we can pull out of the ground per year. That amount is measured in acre feet typically. So if you figure that, it's just like it sounds. It's 1 foot, 12 inches of water over 1 acre. Something like 325,000 gallons of water. So you guys currently have just over 27 acre feet. They also regulate how fast we can pull that water out of the ground and where it can be used. Okay, we can't pull it out of the ground and just use it anywhere. They want to know where this water is going, what amount of surface is it watering. Currently, the scope of this analysis was the football game field. Since this battery spills over into your other sports fields, we did a little bit of looking there as well. Some concerns that I have with the water supply: number one, the battery, quote unquote, that is approved actually doesn't exist, because at some point in the recent past there has been a repair made. There was a leak, and at that time those 2 wells were separated. So one well is currently irrigating baseball and soccer, and one is watering the 2 football fields. It works, but it doesn't meet the state's requirements. So I'm not a big government guy at all, but at the same time, one, we want to, when we're doing this sort of thing, we want to be solving problems, not creating more of them for you. And in this case, it's an easy fix. Not to mention, it's already in your best interest. If for some reason the pumps that are watering the soccer field, if it goes out, it's already connected to the other pump. We can still water. Right now, it's not. So we can kill two birds with one stone by connecting those pipes back together again. And then we, A, have the battery of wells that the state requires, and B, you have a backup built in already. In talking with Dano, he is always struggling to keep his water use under that 27 acre feet. That doesn't surprise me when we go into either get these water rights originally. A lot of schools have no idea that they even need meters on the wells. So we will go to the state, we'll go through the process to get the wells metered, to get the water that they need. We're shooting for 3 feet per acre, 36 inches per acre. And that's a pretty good number to where if we went through another 2012 style hot, dry year, you ought to be able to water all your acres without getting in trouble with the state. So again, the volume doesn't surprise me that he's running into that. I have talked to, I usually work with Topeka. There are some areas within the state. Nickerson is within one of those areas that is a groundwater management district where there's 2 governing authorities. One is the state, one is the management district. Both my contacts at the state and the people that I've kind of put some feelers out with groundwater management district says getting more water is not out of the question. Nobody will go out and say, yeah, it's a slam dunk, you can do it. But they're also not saying, they're not putting up any roadblocks, they're not saying it should be able to be done. So, there's 2-inch PVC pipe going from the well to the game football field. And currently, we're going to get into water flows here after a bit, but 2-inch pipe is pretty small for the actual flow that you're putting through it. If we, I mentioned that we've got to authorize the place of use, where that water is going to be, where it's going to be used, and also any well that's going to water any contiguous acres. So they're not going to say, okay, this well waters 2 acres, and this well waters the next 2 acres, and this well water. We can't irrigate 30 acres with 15 wells. They don't see it that way. Currently, there is a portable sprinkler running down the middle of the field, just trying to get more water on the field without going through the meter. It's using a 3rd well that's on site. That 3rd well is also watering a bunch of grass around the outside of the track. Again, the state is not going to draw a distinction between the grass that's inside the track and the grass that's outside the track. I'm going to be the last one to go and tell them what's going on, okay? But we're trying to solve problems here. We're trying to get you in a place where you're good for a long time. If there's water to be had, and all we have to do is ask for it, we should ask for it. We should get you what you need to water all of your fields, all the area around the track, the softball field that doesn't exist. We should fix the place of use and fix the quantity of water and make it all be what it should be, and we're done with it. A little bit of a spoiler alert here. Bottom line of this whole report. My goal is to give you, if you have $1 to spend, what do we do with that $1? This page that we're talking about right now. Fix this first. Yeah. Before we go to, if it means I'm talking you out of doing business with us, fine. When you get this fixed, one, we can help you do this, okay? But if it means you're going to send Dano to do it, fine. If it means that, as far as the maintenance is concerned, that we're going to talk about later, if Dano and Brian, continue doing it. Fine. Whatever it takes to fix the water, to get the water that those guys need to put on the grass. Whether it's what you're currently doing, which there's not enough water for, if it's what's happening outside the track, if it's a softball field that you want to do in the future, that's the number one first thing to get correct.
What would that number be? Currently, without the softball field, what would it be 36 acre feet? The 12 acres times
Yes, sir.
3? What would it take to do the softball field and add that on in?
Softball fields are typically right at an acre. And then if you want to do anything outside around the field, you know, outside
Yeah.
the track.
Yeah.
So,
1.5 maybe, or even 2?
yeah, what we want to do is make it big.
Yeah, because it'll get harder to get water, not
Exactly.
easier.
Yes, if it's possible now, tomorrow is harder to get water than today, and a week from now is harder than tomorrow. If it's there for the getting, we want to make your place of use huge. If you tell me, Brett, we're never going to irrigate that,
Yeah,
it doesn't cost you anything.
that's right.
Maybe you will someday.
Yep.
Maybe, if nothing else, it's more acres and more feet and more acres is more water. So if you end up with, in my mind, I'm shooting for somewhere in the like 45, 48 acre feet range. Let's not make this a problem. If all we have to do is ask for it,
Yeah.
don't ask for $5 when there's 10 on the table, okay?
What, as far as like districts like this asking for more water, what is a typical, I mean, as far as time frame? Because is it categorized differently than ag use compared to this, or how? Because I know you can put a permit in and wait a long time
Yes, sir.
for a well permit.
Right now, they're telling me the lead time is 6 to 12 months. I've actually got one back in 2020 that we filed in 2016 in a problem area. But at the same time, if you have an application, I gotta cover the microphone here. If you have an application on file that isn't a problem child, typically, off the record here, okay, typically they kind of go like this a little bit to usage. As long as you're not going over where you're gonna be at. If the problem is them and their holdup, they're a lot more willing to work with you than if you're not even trying
Yeah, and just doing it.
and just doing it. Right. So that is not
So-
the official position of the Department of Agriculture.
As long as we have the application in,
That's you're showing an effort. You're showing that we want to. Their main concern is getting you within their regulations. Okay? If you're making an effort to get within their regulations, they're going to make an effort to work with you too.
Okay.
There's a lot bigger fish to fry out there than USD 309.
So with that being said,
No, I'm not. I'm saying there's bigger violators, not
Yeah.
that there's somebody more important.
so what you're saying is, just so I'm clear, as long as there's an application to the water district and we quote unquote move forward and go past what our quote unquote 27 acre feet and say go to 36,
are we gonna be penalized?
yes,
I'll say it this way. I have yet to see them penalize somebody who is using it while the application is in process. Are you violating your water right? Yes.
yeah.
Can they penalize you? Yes. I have yet to see them do that. If you
To a quote unquote something at this nature,
right.
because I have seen lots of penalties, and to the point where you're just shutting your well down,
Right.
and that scares me because I have witnessed it numerous times.
I would, as far as for that particular reason, as far as something that is important to get on yesterday, this is it. if we can, one reason that I'm saying this is if we go in and put, let's say we strip all this off, we put brand new sod on it, we're not using less water,
No.
we're using more.
Mhm.
So if we go do a project before this is complete, let's say, or even on file, the chances of being able to stay within 27 acre feet on all the other fields
Yeah.
is very slim.
Mhm.
Brett, what if we go ahead, file, we go ahead, do the football field, spend lots of money, and they turn us down? And now we don't have the water to actually take care of a very expensive, great
Sure.
field.
There's a couple things we can do there. I'm speaking in my experience with the state of Kansas. Okay, I have precious little experience with GMD2. So with the state of Kansas is point of reference here.
Okay.
But there are exceptions to every rule and exceptions for every exception. We don't have one play here. Okay, I've got several more in my back pocket. But we can file for an exemption. A popular one is there is a small use exemption available where they look at it and say, this guy's not running a pivot, he's not gonna pull 800 gallons a minute out of the ground, he wants to water a football field.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a
so we can,
public use type of thing, you know?
not necessarily even public use,
Really?
but it's just small use.
Yeah.
So they say this area is appropriated, which means
Wow.
no more safe yield here. We can sneak another little one in, assuming no one's already asked for it. Again, it's first come, first serve.
Yeah.
We can, there's a pivot close by, you know, just west,
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah.
How much water does that guy have? Does he have all of it that he could ever want? Does he have, 15, 20 acre feet to spare? I don't know, maybe. As long as we can move water from, on paper, from his pivot to your well. Again, there's lots of rules to all the exceptions too. If we start getting into the weeds with this deal, it's, part of my goal here is get some direction on what we wanna
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And we could talk all night on water rights,
Yeah.
but, worst case scenario, City of Nickerson. City of Nickerson goes through the exact same process. Their place of use is the City of Nickerson. So, worst case scenario, we say, we've got 27 acre feet, that's all we got. What field or fields do we hook up to city water?
Okay.
You spoke a term, and I wanted to make sure because you said turf. You basically your fields are started out as grass seed. I mean, it's not sod.
Most of our fields have either been sodded or sprigged
Okay.
to establish the grass. Typically, those two methods are faster establishment and more reliable. And with the exception of this spring, sports didn't actually happen, but comes first weekend of September, we're playing football. And no excuses, no, well, we had a heavy rain, we had high winds, we had this, that, seed washed down the drains. Nobody wants to hear that, we wanna play football.
Mhm.
So, seed is significantly, if you're talking pool season fields, the fescues, the bluegrass, seed is significantly cheaper. And it's your dice to roll.
Yeah.
But the sod is definitely the way to go because the water erosion, the wind factor, all of that is done. You lay it, it's over with, you're playing football September, first weekend of September.
Okay. That brings me to another question, and if I'm interrupting this,
No, sir, I'm good.
looking at that, our goal was to make this a multi-purpose field, including soccer. With that being said, I mean, is that possible?
Yeah, to play soccer on it?
With redoing this, getting it your 1 to 1.5% grade.
This drain right here,
Mm-hmm.
and this is my drawing. In reality, it does that.
Yeah.
Soccer fields aren't like football, where football field is 360 feet long, including the end zones, and 54 times 3 feet wide. Then soccer field is, well, it's kind of between this and this is all fine. Minimum width on a soccer field is 55 yards. So your field, if we go 55 yards, that drain is right there and right there.
Mm-hmm.
In soccer, kind of like football, but even more so, the officials run just outside
Mm-hmm.
of those sidelines or touch lines if you're a soccer purist. And where they run would be right on top of that. If ball goes out of bounds, they pick the thing up, throw it in. That happens right here. So to say that it's realistic to play soccer on that field with these drains in their current location would not be ideal. If we were to move them out here, right along the track, in a channel drain,
Mm-hmm.
you definitely have the width to do it.
Okay.
What would be that cost? Are you
Glad you asked. I have I might be glad you asked. I have too many papers. Do it this way. I'm going to go from memory here, all right? The channel drains themselves, okay, is roughly 53 grand in materials. The installation, I would propose, this is the inside of your track, I would propose doing straightaways and leave these inlets as they are to do the outsides. All we need is width, we don't need length. So let these do what they're gonna do. We'd have about 400 feet of channel drain along each side. Those would drain into your current drain basins. We put a lid on them, cover them up. So we'd use 90% of what you got. That channel drain is encased in concrete. So you put a concrete 4 inches on all sides of it, 4 inches underneath. Somewhere in the $45,000 neighborhood for installation.
I don't like your memory. You better find it in your.
It's roughly $90,000 to put channel drains in. 90 and change, yeah.
That's 100 there almost.
Yeah, it is. It's 90 and change. Inman math, right?
But that does away with those drains that are close to the football field.
That totally does away with those drains. Yeah. The reason why that's so terrible expensive, your track is, if you look at those numbers, it's almost dead level, and it should be, okay? Well, we talked about the talented water going uphill, right? Well, we're gonna buy a channel that does this. Okay, so if it's a cutaway, it's not like the gutter on your house, okay, where it's all the same depth and they slope the whole gutter just a little bit so you can't see it. Well, my house is about 60 feet long. This is 400 feet long. You slope it a little bit, it shows up over 400 feet. So what we do is, instead of sloping the whole thing, you buy special channels that the bottom of it is sloped. So the top can stay level right on your track. The bottom is going to get deepest right at those drain inlets. We're going to shoot it over into them, cap them on the top, and cover it up. Turns out I'm not glad you asked.
Me too.
You too. Pumps and motors. Currently, you've got a 15 horse electric motor and a centrifugal pump supplying water to the football fields. 10 horse on the soccer and baseball fields. We've got a number of different zone flows within the football field, so each zone is not using the same amount of water. The highest flow zone that we have is 118 gallons a minute. The lowest one that we have is 72. The pump and motor work together to supply a volume of water at a pressure. And so it's kind of like your garden hose at home. You can stand here, if you're just holding it, you have a lot of water coming out, 10 gallons a minute, 15 gallons a minute, but it's just rolling out the end. It just bubbles out the end of it. If we put my thumb over the end of it, now I can do something with that water. I can do work. I can wash the car, I spray the dog, whatever you need to do. So, but the flow drops significantly. Instead of spraying 15 gallons a minute, maybe I'm using 5 now, but I've increased the pressure. Same thing with your sprinkler system. We just have a whole bunch of thumbs over a whole bunch of ends of the hose. So we need pressure to be able to do the work. Currently, we've got the sports turf style heads that are out there run best between 50 and 70 psi, with 60 being the sweet spot. We've got a lot of sprinkler heads out there that are running 30 psi, so half where they ought to be. And those are typically on the big zones. So just like your garden hose, we've got a giant flow. We're asking for a lot of water, and it's going to give you a lot of water, but we've lost the pressure. The pressure is what gives you distance out of the head, but it also creates this curtain of water, a proper curtain that gives you uniform coverage as well. To correct this problem, we can look at it in 2 different ways. It's not simply a pump and motor issue. If we're going to use a pump and motor like most people think of, we want to use all the water that's coming out of that pump, but maintain a certain pressure. So that is sprinkler design. Okay, we need every zone to flow right on that sweet spot. So that can be number of heads, it could be the size of the nozzle in the head. It's just like a pivot. We can change the nozzles, ask for a different amount of water. We can actually take some of those zones, the ones that are at 118 gallons a minute, we could cut them in half and say, instead of having one zone at 118, we've got 2 zones at 59. So we could change pumps and motors. We can actually put in a variable frequency drive that will change the output of that pump. It monitors the pressure. It says, I don't care how much water's coming through here. We're running until we can get 60 psi, 70 psi, whatever it's set at. Again, do we want to do a major irrigation renovation, or do we want to change the flow of what you have? Changing the flow of what you have is not out of line. It's definitely doable. As far as most of the rest of it, I think it's a usable system. Sprinkler heads, but what do you want to see out of your field?
Do we have enough zones? Or do we have too many heads per zone with what we need? Because you said we have a lot of heads.
Right.
And maybe we can just change nozzles to get the pressure we need.
If you look at figure 3, a chart that shows you zones 1 through 7 are on the practice field, so 8 through 13 are on your game field. And we measured for every you've got a list of every sprinkler head in here and what we measured. That's really getting into small details for tonight. But if we look at big picture on the zones, when we measure the pressure at the pump, we've got between 48 and 55 PSI. We lose pressure for every foot of pipe we go through, every valve we go through, just due to the friction of the water going through the pipe. So we've got the flow per zone, and then when we get to the heads, those two numbers within zone 8, for example, the lowest pressure we measured at a sprinkler head was 28 PSI. The highest pressure head in that zone was 40 PSI. We're way, way under on 8 and 9. But that shouldn't be a surprise because we're asking for 107 and 118 gallons a minute. It's just more than what the pump and motor can do. If we get down into our 72 gallon per minute flow on zone 11, things are starting to look up. We're not losing as much between the pump and the sprinkler heads. Our sprinkler head, all of our pressures are higher. We're getting warm here on, we've even cracked into the 50s, which is, I'd like to see 50 plus at the head. We've got some there. So, for sprinkler heads, that was one of the things on page 1 that I think Dano was requesting as new sprinkler heads. I couldn't agree more. I think that'd be a great thing to do if we don't want to do a major renovation to the irrigation system. The other thing I would suggest is take zones 8 and 9 and make 4 zones out of those 2. So if we do that, if we re-nozzle these, all of the zones, the chart with all the sprinkler head numbers on it, there's a tremendous number of, if we get into zones 10, 11, 12, there's a bunch of 12 gallon a minute nozzles on those zones. I'd take every one of those and knock them down to a 10. I wouldn't want to go less than a 10, but if we're taking 6 sprinkler heads per zone, 2 gallons a minute out of each one, we take that 72 and move it down to a 60. On zone number 11, 72 gallons a minute goes to 60 gallons a minute. Our pressures come up just a little bit. Maybe we can get all those heads at 50 or more. If we can take this 118 gallon a minute and knock it down even to half of what it is, we're right in there. We're 59 gallons a minute. It's our pressures ought to come up somewhere close to what these are. It's more pipe that has to go through. We ought to be able to get close. Again, do we want Arrowhead or do we want something else?
You said, like all our pipe in between the heads is 2 inch, you said.
What I was referring to is from this building where the pump is, under here is 2 inch, and that's what's carrying all of the water. Once we get between heads, every head is knocking out 12 gallons a minute, plus we split it. The zones are, to oversimplify it, that's one zone, 6 heads down the middle of the field. Well, let's just say it does this. Well, now each one of those pipes is carrying less. I didn't dig up all the pipes. But as soon as we start splitting it, as soon as we start passing sprinkler heads, we're using less water.
Did you happen to look how old our pumps are that we have now? I mean, are they pretty old? Because
I think I can tell you what one of them is.
isn't a lot of places going to the variable speed
Yes.
pumps? Yeah, that's what we did.
They
last longer.
The pump on the football field was installed in April of 16.
So it's not that old.
It's not that old. The centrifugal pumps don't really produce pressure all that well. Volume in spades, yeah. To get to that 80 PSI, probably not. But certainly if something were to go out or you wanted to make some major improvements, a submersible pump and motor on a variable frequency drive, you size it for the biggest zone flow, and it can always back it off. It can always pull the throttle back a little bit, but what you have certainly is we're bumping up against the very top end of what it's capable of doing. We looked at the controller. It's not all that old of a controller. I'm not going to be able to give you a date on that one. But if you want to turn a zone on and off at a prescribed time for a certain amount of time, it's going to do it. It's got room in it to add 2 more zones. If we want to split those 2 zones up into 4, we'd have to add a module to it, add some capability, but it's capable of doing it. Just like anything else electronic, we can make a lot of improvements, like any computer. There's a lot of really neat things we can do. Some of those are, we can add Wi-Fi capability to it, to where it knows what the weather is and makes adjustments on a daily basis for irrigation run times. Is it perfect? Does it replace Dano completely? No. Does it make an educated guess? Yeah, it does a pretty decent job. Not only that, we can have it, you can scale that thing up as big or as small as you want it to be. If we add a flow sensor to that, it will learn how much flow each zone uses. So it might look in this current setup, it might look at zone 8 and say, all right, 107 gallons a minute. And we tell it how tight of tolerances are we willing to deal with. But usually what we're looking for out of that is to save your pump and motor. So if a valve doesn't open, the controller, your current controller doesn't know that. It's running the pump and motor and there's no water going anywhere. Hard on your pumps. If you have a line break, for example, you got a lot of water, maybe this 107 goes to 307. Well, it's doing a lot of damage. It's sending water down these drains we were talking about, or sending soil down those drains we were talking about earlier. It can send an email, it can send a text message to Dano, to Dan, to whoever wants to know about it,
No kidding.
and say, hey, you ought to go look at zone 8. I saw 307 gallons a minute and I'm expecting 107. Something's up.
Wow.
So it will skip, say it sees that, it will skip zone 8 and go to 9. If the problem corrects and 9's running 120 gallons a minute, it says the problem must have been in zone 8. So I'll run 9 through 13 just like you told me to, but I'm not going to run zone 8 until someone comes and looks at this. If it sees the problem in 9, it'll skip to 10. If it sees it in 10, it's gonna, when it starts skipping, it goes, this is in the main line. This isn't in a zone. If it sees it through all of them, it says, I'm not running anything until Dano comes and looks at this.
No, we can do that with our current system, just adding on a few bells and whistles.
That would be a different controller.
Oh, that'd be
You
a different controller.
Right.
What do them run?
They're not a terrible amount. $1,000 would get you a
That's
really fancy
what-
controller.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 2,000 gets you the
Elite.
Elite. If you want Wi-Fi and all this stuff we've talking about, $1,000 gets you there.
Good enough. Okay.
We can get remotes to where if someone's trying to fix a problem, they're not sitting here working in a valve and then walking all 500 feet back across the field. They just push a button. Did it work? Did it not
Yeah.
work? They're blowing out a system for the winter. They can be looking at it happening. Okay, it's done. Next one.
Nice.
We can have freeze monitors. We can have rain sensors. Just like anything else, the amount of information is huge. It's what do you want it to do?
Our heads aren't sewn for that draining.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. But if
It was an example I was.
okay, but if we did different heads, would that be something you could put on ours, or is that does that change piping, or what does that include?
That would be a good time to make the. Is my drawing big enough for y'all to see this?
Yeah.
Let's say we have a zone valve right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, draining all of this pipe that is supplying the sprinkler heads wouldn't be a bad addition to do. It wouldn't be terribly difficult to do while we're putting in sprinkler heads.
Mm-hmm.
It's a drain in the pipe. The problem is this section of pipe and this whole main line
Mm-hmm.
we're still not touching.
Yeah.
So the automatic draining systems are kind of good and bad. The good is we can run water in the wintertime if we want to. Okay, it's going to take the thing 5 5, 6 hours to drain empty. If we see a February day that it's been dry, we wanna get water out there, go for it. The other one is you don't see us every fall. You don't see a bill from us every fall. Okay? The bad thing is, it's designed to leak. That's the whole point of it. If it's built by a man, it's gonna break at some point. And if we go out here and put 100 designed leaks out there, they're pretty foolproof, but not as much as a solid piece of pipe either. So, I like reliability, I like it to be bulletproof, and if my sprinkler system at home, I blow it out every year. And in February, sometimes I wish I could run water, but I want it to be bulletproof.
How old is your sprinkler system at home?
Huh?
How old is your system at home?
8 years old.
Okay. Mine's 12 with self-draining. Not a problem. 100 heads.
100 heads?
89 to be exact.
Very nice. Yeah, they're not unreliable by any means.
Okay.
Yeah, they usually do pretty well, but personal preference.
Okay.
Your system, we'll do it how you want it done.
Just asking questions.
We looked at valves and valve boxes. Short version of the story. I don't see anything I would change just for the sake of changing valves and valve boxes. They're pretty close. If we do a grading project, yeah, they're all going to change. But if we want to make what you've got work, very, very usable. Sprinkler heads, there's 54 of them out here, most of which are Rainbird 6504s, a few oddballs. If we go through that sprinkler head list, there is a large number of them that are a little too low in the ground. So much so that we actually quit putting it on there. But a lot of these are arc adjust, means, you know, maybe it's supposed to be going 180 degrees and it's going 210 or something like that, or it's going 70 or 170 instead of 180. Off plumb, you know, it's not quite vertical. If there's a leak in the head, that's pretty self-explanatory. I think you'd get a better pattern with different heads. You're going to solve every problem on that sheet, as far as if you put in a new head, it darn well better be plumb and not leak and be adjusted properly. We can solve some of these flow issues, at least on 4 of the 6 zones, is something as simple as a different nozzle. We're going to put a nozzle in the head anyways, it might as well be the right one. At the bottom of that page is a cost breakdown just for replacing heads. If we're going to go into your exact same field, if the only thing we would do is replace sprinkler heads, that's what I would recommend. A hunter head, a swing joint is an ability to adjust the elevation of that head and it's got all O-rings in it, so we can move it up, down, side to side, whatever we want to do as often as we need to do it and make it perfect. We touched on fertility a little bit already. We took 2 soil tests. Some of the concerns that I have in the 0 to 8, if we want to use what you've got, the nitrogen isn't bad. It looks low on the piece of paper, but everybody puts fertilizer on their lawn every year because it's low on nitrogen. So that's not a big deal. It's an easy fix. A little bit of potassium and manganese would be nice. The excess lime levels are the ones that get to be a little bit, then that also is the pH of it. You know, limestone is where most of these high pH problems are coming from. And to adjust that without being able to till those amendments in is a long process, but one that is better undertaken than just ignoring the problem. A lot of times when we start getting high lime and high pH, we want to look at the water. I would suggest doing a water test, water analysis. Say, is this water making it worse?
Yeah, that's what I'm.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
That gotta be.
So, is it worth going to city water over? Probably not. But do we need to know what we're fighting and know how to fight it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We want to know where this is coming from. We talked about the 8 to 16 inch results. The 8 to 16 is to help you make a decision on if we're going to do a grading project, what do you want it to look like? Do we want to just flip this soil over here, do nothing, flip it over and do a major amendment to this middle area, or strip the topsoil, make a subgrade, and then put all the topsoil back?
Do you have that somewhere as far as an estimate, the difference in price between A and B?
On the very last page, before we get into the different pictures, number one thing I want to point out is the drainage level 2 is a gross miscalculation and a misprint on my part. That $35,000 doesn't even buy the materials. I had a spreadsheet error that gave me a 35 and I did not catch it. So that drainage level 2 is what we're talking about right here, that I was telling you is 90-ish.
Oh.
But a lot of these things, you know, when I was a kid, I would read these books called Choose Your Own Adventure, and you'd read for a little while and it says, do you want to take the path to the right or to the left? And then you choose, and it says go to page 10 or go to page 30, whatever you want to do. That's kind of what this is. We can start down this and say, we want to do this drainage level, whatever, 2. Okay, well, if you choose drainage level 2, well, then we also need to choose grading level 3. Because we're moving a bunch of soil. We're not just if we just put channel drains along the track, we're not accomplishing what we're trying to do. So some of these we can do that, but it means this. Some of them are a standalone thing. So, for example, if we start at the top, the water rights part of it, you know, I really think between $1,000 and $3,000 we're going to have your water. But
That's all.
I think we can do it. I've had one failure, but I've had a lot of success at it too. And we can go to level 2, buy water from somebody. Well, City of Nickerson, we can figure out what that price is, but the farmer, we have a limited number of farmers that statutorily will be able to move water from. They have all the supply and we have all the demand.
Yeah.
So whatever they want to choose. We also looked at weed and pest disease control. It's really hard to figure stuff like that out when you're looking at the field in the first part of April. Even the road ditches look good. So I would assume that because I'm standing here, you guys want to make some improvements. So some of those I had to dig a little deep for. Some of them probably won't become clear till August. But I get a report from Dano as what he has done already this year, what his typical maintenance program looks like. The number one thing that I would guess is his problem is he doesn't have the water that he needs to do what
And he
wants
said
to do.
that.
So that's going to show up in July and August. Right now
Yeah.
it looks a lot better than it will once you get 100 degrees and you don't have the water that you want.
Yeah.
Currently there was, in his report, no insecticide for grub worms. A lot of times you don't have a problem, but it's not terrible expensive to put down that insecticide.
Oh.
So I like to have that down there. The problem, especially in football, is those problems show up when grub worms hatch in July. They start feeding in August. You see the damage in August.
It's too late.
There's nothing we can do before first weekend of September. He has one application of herbicide listed to keep the Bermuda grass out of your fescue field. If that's a battle you want to fight, it takes 3 applications per year. It's gonna help, but to get the full effect of that, and it is quite effective. At least what we're applying, and I think he's applying the same thing. It just said Bermuda grass herbicide, but what we're using is very effective. We've been using it now for 3 or 4 years and seeing very good results. I haven't seen anything for, it says apply fertilizer September, apply fertilizer November. I don't know what fertilizer it is. I don't know how much is going out there. So I just don't have any data to tell you sufficient or insufficient. And I know that Brian and I talked about applying fungicide, but I don't know what fungicide. It wasn't on the list at all. I don't know which fungicide. I don't know how often. A cool season, the top-notch cool season football field, the cool season grasses, fescue, bluegrass, rye, are gonna need a fungicide program.
Yeah.
It's the more you ask of it, you say, well, I don't do that on my lawn at home. The more you ask of it, the more you need to, the more inputs you have to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like Michael Phelps when he was talking about when he was competing, he'd eat 12,000 calories a day. Well, that does not benefit me at all. But with the amount, he was asking his body to do, that's what he was burning every day. It's just phenomenal. It's similar to your football field. I'm not asking my lawn at home to host football games. So there's some things that we would do to your football field that don't really apply to the front lawn of the school. We've got several different programs at several different price points for maintenance programs. There is a sheet in here with lots of different colored numbers on it. Yeah. So again, this is a choose your own adventure menu. The blues and the purples are a little bit tough to see the difference in color there. But all the blue numbers are our basic maintenance package. All the other colors you start adding to the blue one. Oh, the blue one is a basic fertilizer package. You're going to get 4 applications of fertilizer. We're going to core aerate the field every year. That's with a powered aerator, not something you drag around behind a gator. It punches holes on 2-inch centers in all directions, 4 inches deep. We'll overseed the field with a powered slit seeder, which means it makes a little slit to where that seed drops down to the soil, not sitting up on top of the grass. And then we top dress the field with sand. It's a very common practice on the golf courses, but roughly 1/8 of an inch of sand every year goes on it. And then we'll drag that. So the point of the sand is that number one, we want to fix little problems, not fix big problems. So when you get one of these divots from a cleat or something like that, we can fill those, we can kind of smooth them out. It protects the crown of the grass. In time, you're buying a sand cap football field. So if you go to a USGA golf green, they're 18 inches of sand. It's not just bent grass on top of Kansas dirt. Arrowhead Stadium, I was there when they were renovating theirs a number of years ago. It's 12 inches of sand. Now, that is a high maintenance proposition, and they do it because of moisture control. They figure we can add moisture easier than we can take it out on clay soils. So moisture in the soils for them means disease. It means it's not playable. If we're getting a rain on Sunday morning and we're supposed to be playing the Patriots Sunday afternoon, they want that water gone. They don't care if they have to keep applying water all the time. So, for those reasons, they have a lot of sand and subsurface drainage that it all goes into. For a typical Kansas high school, when we top dress every year, we're getting a half an inch of sand on top of your native soil. So what we're doing is we're making that top inch of soil evacuate water really fast. And you get the playability and you get the playing surface of a sandier surface.
Yeah.
But your roots can still go into your native soil that has more clay, more organic matter, and it's not the high maintenance monster that having the entire root zone being sand is.
When did you say you apply that?
On a cool season field, we do those either spring or fall depending on the sport. So baseball would be fall, but football would be spring. Just whenever it's not being used.
Well, you just added that question because we were using it all the time.
Well, whenever it's used less.
You have football, you have a winter, you have soccer, sometime you have band.
We will, to do this process, usually takes about 3 days. So
And then then you can play on it again, or what would, oh,
you can play on it again. When you start adding soccer, spring and fall, it gets real tough. A lot of times on that, we'll actually do a dormant seeding.
mhm.
So we'll come in when we know it's too cold for the grass to germinate.
Mhm.
We'll come in and do all of that, and we'll say as soon as it warms up in the spring, that seed's gonna come up. Is it ideal? No. We're here to play soccer though, not to maintain a field, so we do the best we can with what we got.
Mhm.
If it's a warm season field, the Bermudas, the Zoysias, that sort of thing, then we do those in the summertime.
Mhm. Okay, so it could be done in the summer then, just depending on, well,
Type
depending
of
on what
grass
grass
mostly.
it is, yes.
Yeah.
What form of gypsum do you use? The powder?
It's a granular product.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. If we were gonna do a total renovation, you just bring it in bulk in
Mhm.
semi-trucks, but typically for something like this, it's something we apply with the fertilizer spreader. Again, just the maintenance thing is, we could be here all night talking about this.
Yeah.
But it gives you an idea. This is 4 fields, all treated the same way. So the numbers that you're looking at, that 72,016 is all the options on 4 fields. Football game field, football practice field, baseball, soccer.
Oh, that's all.
Okay.
The mowing contract is the same thing. It is, it comes out to $49,000, something like that a year for roughly 88 cuttings over all 4 fields. Again, there's a lot to talk about here. Do you want to treat all 4 fields the same way? Do we want to treat one of them differently, 2 of them differently? The economies of scale make it pretty appealing to treat all 4 the same way. But if you want to do something special to the game field that you don't want to do the practice field, there's certainly a lot of different variables we can talk about there.
Just go ahead. Did somebody want to? Was you saying something like? I think the last meeting Jeannie might have mentioned, or maybe it was Rick. I can't remember. No, it was Jeannie. The statement was made. Our soccer field that we have now isn't all that far off, as far as, you know, with just a little bit of help, could be a really good soccer field as we have it now. Is that just interseeding, fertilizer, some, you know, that kind of stuff? What do you remember what?
I was on the field. I walked the field. I would not disagree with the statement. I also haven't done this to it either.
Right.
But a lot of those things that I'm recommending here are just good for fescue. They're good for cool season. This is more of a cool season schedule because with your staff, we're going to talk about types of grass next.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been leaning really hard to the cool season grass, mostly fescue, which mostly what you have. So that's what this maintenance schedule is based on, is cool season grass. And yeah, I think, you know, the number one thing that can be done for any sports field, your front lawn, a sports field, anything, the number one thing for irrigation efficiency, for weed control, for playability is mowing. It is counterintuitive. You think, well, my 12-year-old son mows the lawn. Well, yeah, I don't have a 12-year-old son, but I've actually had a customer tell me I can put any monkey on a mower. True. I don't know what your mower's going to look like when you get back, or what your field's going to look like, but for irrigation efficiency, if that grass is higher than the nozzle coming out of the head,
Boy. Yeah.
what are we really doing here?
Yeah.
Okay. For weed control, most of your broadleaf weeds don't like to be mowed. A lot of them, you mow them once or twice and they're gone. The ones that we see in our lawns aren't those, but a lot of the bad weed problems go away when you just mow more often. For playability, you hear people talk about, let me get a clean sheet. People talk about, I want to mow my grass really tall, because when I mow the grass really tall, I get big long roots on the bottom, right? Well, yeah, that's true. It's proportional. I mean, they're not, if this is 6 inches, this is not 6. This might be 12 or 18. My point is, on a sports field, do we really need to be preparing for drought? We ought to be able to irrigate it. Number one thing we talked about. We need to be able to irrigate it. So what difference does this down here even make? My concern is when your 250-pound linemen get out here and they try to make a cut on this, and they have these 3 long spindly roots holding that piece of grass in, and it's gone. What difference does this really make? Let's say we start mowing this thing at 2 inches. Okay? Proportionally, this isn't going to be 2, this might be 8 or 10 now. But this plant of grass wants a certain surface area of green material to photosynthesize. We're training this grass in the off season just like your football team is training in the off season. Okay? They're in the weight room, they're running sprints, they're getting their body ready. Their body looks different and it performs differently when they're done. When we're mowing this grass, we're telling it what we expect it to do. And we're telling it this is going to happen every day. Within reason. This is not a weird thing. If I go in and start doing bench press, I don't do bench press. But if I start lifting real heavy, okay, and I go and do it one time, I'm going to be sore, I'm going to hurt, and I might even injure myself. Okay? If we take this 6-inch grass and come in here and go, it's going to be sore, it's going to hurt, and it might injure it. If I start doing bench press every day, I'm going to be able to start to lift more, I'm going to look better, and I'm probably not going to get injured doing it, because I'm telling my muscles, this is a daily thing, this is a multiple times a week thing. Get used to it, deal with it, adjust for it. That's what we're telling this grass. We're telling it this is the new normal. This is what we're doing, deal with it. And it will get denser. It's not the same grass, shorter. It will be much, much denser. Right?
Yeah.
If we were looking at grass, we went and looked at tall grass and short grass. The exact same fescue.
Based on his statement, I've been mowing my yard twice a week now.
Does it make a difference?
It's a huge difference. It's a huge difference.
Yeah. You mean you could already see?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We went and looked at, I kid you not, the exact same fescue. Mowed at, 6 inches? And mowed at 2 inches. They even resemble the same grass. It's a totally different thing. It's denser, everything about it is better. It's not just the same grass, shorter.
Why do my weeds keep coming back?
Mhm.
I need to
Then
They're
the-
mobile.
apply a herbicide there.
Cheapskate.
So what we're gonna do, people talk about, well now, but my roots are so short, they're not going down here 3 feet anymore. We talked about it, I don't care about 3 feet. I want a lot of roots in the top 6 inches. I don't care if they go down 3 feet, I wanna be able to withstand the 250-pound lineman making a cut or trying to push the other 250-pound lineman. That's my problem on a sports field. It's not deep roots trying to deal with drought, at least not when you have an irrigation system. So, mowing height, mowing frequency, it's off-season training. It's the weight room for grass.
So this 88 times, during the growing season, how many times is that a week approximately? Is that like Rick's doing twice a week, or is that just once a week? I mean, what is that kind of average on a field?
That number will require, these pages are my own detriment, but it will require the plant growth regulator on the maintenance program. That is an average of 2.25 times a week.
Wow.
We're not gonna mow the fourth of the field.
Yeah.
But you're talking several weeks, 3 times a week, and spraying growth regulator
Really?
to make that even possible. When we're coming in here, good mowing practice is we want to remove no more than 1/3 of the grass blade at one time. So if we've got our 6-inch blade, we can come in here and cut 2 inches off. Okay. Well, in the springtime, maybe now we haven't got a lot of heat to really get stuff going, but 1/2 inch a day is not out of the question at all. So if we're going to cut 2 inches off, we can go 4 days. Okay. Now let's say here that we're maintaining 2 inches. Let's say we're maintaining 3 inches. In the math. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Now I can cut 1 inch off. If I'm growing 1/2 inch a day, how often am I mowing?
Okay.
Every 2 days.
Good grief.
And the math isn't that bad. So, if we drop this down to 2, if we drop this down to 1.5, if you go to a golf green, 1/8 inch height of cut, they don't do it more than once a day, but
Wow.
how much can we cut off? So, not only that, if we're coming in here and we're cutting these few little blades off at 2 inches, and you're saying, well, I'm cutting 1/2 inch off here, that's almost nothing. Well, it is almost nothing, but we've got so many more blades in there. The volume of material that you're removing is probably still greater cutting this 1 inch off here than cutting 2 inches off here.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So types of grass. You guys have a cool season everything right now. There's a lot of fescue, there's a lot of blue, there's some rye in it. It's cool season everything. It's usable, okay? I mean, we start putting a maintenance program to that, you start mowing it, it's usable.
Brett, do you need a break? Do you need a drink or anything?
I sure wouldn't turn down the water, no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you need a chair? I'm
No,
starting
no.
to feel sorry for you.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, all right.
If we go types of grass, I'm loving this. This is what I do, all right? That's a privilege for me. There's 3 types of grass that we can go back with, okay? In order from, one of the things that I want to look at when we're going to make a decision on, thank you, on a type of grass is not only what does it look like, not only what does it cost us to put in, but from here forward, what is that cost going to be? What does it cost to own this thing? When you're done buying a new car, your wife or your husband maybe says, well, what kind of gas mileage does this thing make? Well, he or she is indirectly going to a cost of ownership. Okay, if say, well, the other end of that is you might say, well, yeah, it makes terrible gas mileage, but I can pull California. Okay, now we're going to, does it do what we need it to do? If it doesn't do what we need it to do,
Doesn't make any difference.
the gas mileage doesn't matter.
Yep.
So, in order for of long-term cost of ownership, lowest to highest, is the way that these turf grasses are in here. Bermuda grass is the first one. It is not what you guys are thinking of right now. Okay, the weed that invades your lawn is common Bermuda grass. It's gross, it's ugly, the color's terrible, it's rough, all sorts of bad things. Okay, it'd make a decent practice field. You do not want that for your game field. Arrowhead Stadium is Bermuda grass.
No kidding.
If when we plant Bermuda grass, we plant latitude 36 Bermuda, it is the same thing Arrowhead uses. Now, you're gonna tell me the next thing I see his wheels are turning, and you said, I watched playoff game in December, and it was green. Yes. They are heating the field. They have hot water lines, just like you heat concrete. They have hot water lines going into the field. They have a blanket on top of the field and grow lights.
Wow.
So yes, your field can be green in December if it's Bermuda.
They can still pave the holes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Bermuda is, the sports turf Bermudas are stunningly beautiful. You can mow them at a half an inch if you want to. They are incredibly aggressive. If you make a cleat mark, stick a flag in it, and come back the next Friday, it's probably gone. It will grow back in that fast when it's warm. Okay, when we get to the first freeze, it'll grow pretty well through September. First freeze in October, it's done. It's still Bermuda grass. It's going to be green longer than what the common Bermuda, the weed is, but it's still Bermuda grass. So it is the only downside to Bermuda grass in sports turf in Kansas is it goes dormant in October.
Does Oklahoma do the same thing? The University of Oklahoma, do they have the lights and the heat and all that? So how do they?
They're either okay with it or they paint it. I don't know for sure.
Okay.
But that's another option. We have dyes that your Bermuda will look green all winter long.
Okay.
University of Oklahoma's, I don't know what I know that their football game field is Bermuda grass. The one that just went to latitude 36 was their softball field. But the same farm that we get ours from sends sod to the Chiefs, sends sod to the University of Oklahoma. The downside to that dormancy period is when all the fans are in the stadium, they're going to go, in November when it's playoffs, we just got this new field and it's all brown. Well, hopefully there's an opportunity, some education there of why we chose Bermuda grass. The other thing is if that late game in November happens to be wet, there's nothing actively growing there to hold that whole thing together. It gets muddy and nasty real fast. I know a guy that can fix it. And most of the Bermuda does most of it itself, but roll it good, give it a good top dressing, start spreading urea in the summertime. It'll be right back where it was. But those are the downside is the dormant period. The major thing on the cost savings is the dormant period. Two biggest things: we're not putting fungicide on it, we're not seeding it. In fact, there is no such thing as latitude 36 seed. You have to sod it or you have to sprig it. Those are the only two options. It doesn't produce viable seed. We're not watering it for another 3 months a year because it's dormant. We're not mowing it for 3 months because it's dormant. So a lot of that is also the reason why it's cheaper to maintain. So we've got some numbers there, to sod it, to sprig it, and then typical maintenance cost on a Bermuda field. Fescue is hands down the most common irrigated turf grass in Kansas, and for a lot of good reasons. Kansas is in the transition zone, is what's called the climate, and that means we're not really warm like the South is. We're not totally the cool season like North is. Even if you go, Oklahoma is really more south and Nebraska is more north. So you can either look at that as we can grow anything or we can grow nothing. But fescue is the best suited to, one, be a sports turf, and two, deal with the high heat and humidity through the summer and the cold winters on the other end of it. In a sports turf scenario, I would sure recommend a fungicide program, but it isn't a bluegrass and rye. You're crazy if you're not putting fungicide on it. You are not going to have grass come September. But fescue's not nearly so sensitive to the diseases in the hot part of the year. It's not nearly so sensitive to the cold like some of the Bermudas are during the winter time. The trade-off for that is you don't get any bang, wow, awesome traits either. You're not going to mow it at an inch. You're probably not going to mow it at an inch and a half. You can, but it's going to be expensive. If you're going to go with fescue, you're not shooting for that kind of expense. So you're going to mow it at 2.5 inches. It doesn't spread really at all. Most of it has bluegrass in it that does spread a little bit in the spring and summer, or spring and fall, I mean. But it's not going to spread like the Bermuda does. It's not going to fill in like the Bermuda does. It's just a good, solid, middle-of-the-road performer. If you want to swing for the fences, bluegrass is the, if you're going to use it spring and fall, it is the finest turf grass there is that we've got available to us. It is gorgeous. It is fine textured. We could mow it as short as I don't know what I've got here. 3/4 is, wouldn't be a problem. A lot of golf course fairways in the area are bluegrass, and a lot of them are in that 5/8 to 3/4 inch height of cut. I would recommend on football and more in that inch and a quarter range for height of cut, but the water and the fungicide, the foliar nutrient package, all this stuff has to just keep coming all summer long. It really wants to struggle through July and August. But
So the fungicide program is more than a one-time, once a year.
yeah, on a fescue field, I'd recommend once a month. On a bluegrass field, I would say you're talking about more like 6 applications through a growing season.
Is it just because bluegrass is more susceptible to fungus?
Right.
It's just not as tough there.
Right. Yeah, it's more, we're really pushing the southern boundaries
Yes.
of where it really should be. And the heat isn't nearly the problem as the high overnight low temperatures and the high humidity.
Okay.
Even if you go into western Kansas and you get a little bit more elevation and it gets into the 60s at night pretty regularly, maybe upper 50s, and the humidity's a lot lower, it's a different ballgame maintaining it out there than
Yeah.
here. If you go down to southeast Kansas, it gets a little tougher yet.
Yeah. So it's fairly comparable to growing corn here compared to western Kansas. Interesting. But like you said, it's kind of your racehorse. You feed it, push it, it'll perform.
Mhm.
So there's cost there.
Yes, sir.
How much does it cost to paint the Bermuda?
I have not done that for a long time. I don't know.
Is it in like the $5,000 to $10,000 range? I
It's
mean,
not that much. No,
It's not that?
no. It'd be. You could. $700, I guess. $800.
to paint it green and
Under $1,000.
would it last? Is that just once per game? Let's say you have 2 games after it goes dormant. I mean, how many times? How long is that? If you're
You
practicing on it,
You have to watch the use on Bermuda when it is dormant.
mhm.
especially winter and spring. Fall is, most of fall, it seems to like that better than getting on it in February and March. If you really want a multi-use facility that you're gonna be playing girls soccer on,
Yeah, that's pushing it.
probably push you towards the cool season field.
Yeah.
If it's something that we can, it's a phenomenal practice field. The three of us went and looked at some Bermuda fields, and one of them was a practice field, and it's to where that appearance isn't as big of a deal. Not only that, on a practice field, you're moving that usage earlier. So you start talking about 2-a-days, or you start, we're playing football in middle of August on a practice field, not till September on a game field. When we get into November, the football practices start to get lighter, and that's also when it wants to see less use. So those end up pretty well, but for early spring, it's not a great choice, in all honesty.
Because right now we'd be playing on it and it's still brown.
Yeah. That's why I was wondering how many times you'd have to paint it, like if you just used it for just game,
Foot a couple times.
couple times?
Yeah, what about soccer?
Well, yeah, I was just talking if it was just football.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would. If you're talking a girls' soccer program,
Yeah.
it gets to be tough to manage. And
The feel of it, I mean, certainly, I mean, Bermuda feels different than bluegrass,
you'd be surprised with this.
really.
It is really fine textured. It looks. If I would take you to it and put you on it, you'd ask me what it is. You would not identify it as Bermuda grass compared to what the common Bermuda.
Sure.
Some of the other requests we talked about, the 120 volt power. You could do that on its own. We have to bore underneath the track to do it. It'd be a great addition to play clocks because we're gonna need. We're gonna need power out there for that anyways. That was another request. Goalposts were another request. I think would highly recommend goalposts. Right now, you guys have a. So if you're standing on the track, and this is the back line of the end zone, okay? So it says Nickerson coming at you like this, all right? Typical modern goalposts, I'm not an artist here, right? But they start back here and come forward and then go up, right? Yours starts right here and goes up. So when that receiver is running across here, or that D-back is running across, it's getting pretty friendly. If we can set this thing back, again, we've got a lot of choices. You can have a 4-foot setback, you can have a 6-foot setback. What do you want your goalpost to look like? We want it to be something that meets your needs, how tall the uprights are. You want to be 20 feet or 30 feet or 40 feet. You want flags on the top. Do you want to be white? Do you want to be yellow? All these things are things that when we go through a project with a school, we're going to find out exactly what you guys want. And because, like I said, I don't see the pep rally that they want to run a smoke machine for. You guys know how do you use your field. You guys know what your goals are better than I do. I'm here to present information so that you guys can make a good decision on how to go forward. Scoreboard, that one I'm probably gonna have to bow out of. That's a big heavy thing. If you want concrete mounting surfaces in the ground, if you want power run out to it, we'd love to do it for you. That's probably going to be putting the scoreboard on there is going to be beyond what we could actually do. Concrete pads around the flagpoles, and that'd be a pretty easy victory. Keep the maintenance a little easier. the end of it here. Just a fuzz under 2 hours.
Good.
We still have 20 minutes. Come on.
Did Dan was saying, do you have any problems with gophers or bulls? Because they are a problem in town. Did he didn't see anything listed there under the pet category?
He did not mention anything about that, no.
And you know what, Gordon, I haven't. Rick, what do you? I
The
have.
soccer field's always gonna have that challenge.
I've got it at home.
The soccer field, it does not have underground
Migrated from
water,
Sterling.
does it?
It does.
Oh, it does.
Okay.
We have if you want a name of a guy who can deal with moles and gophers, I can give you a name. It's not Brett.
What's your
When we were
skip?
on it when you came, I didn't see any moles or gophers. I mean, that soccer field's in
That's
pretty
good.
good shape.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
would have to
for a
agree.
year,
They're bad in
for 2
town
years.
walls.
But I noticed them around the outside,
Yeah.
so they're not on the actual field.
Well, you can take it as it is, but I went with irrigation. I found after I put irrigation in, the moles like to stay away because they don't like the vibration in the ground.
Really?
They said
Right.
that they had a big issue with an armadillo that was just tearing it up,
So,
and Jeff Wells came out. Tripod.
What's your time schedule? If we decided to do something, do you have the ability? I know I talked to you on the phone. You know, the best timing is right after that last game of football. Start hopping on this kind of a project.
Mhm.
Do you have that time slot available for this coming fall?
We do.
You do.
Right now we're good.
What is once you sod? How much time does it take before it's able to be played on?
Well, it depends on when we sod.
Sure.
In cool season turf, you start getting soil temperatures above about 80, 85 degrees, root growth just stops. So we might, if you were to sod it in the middle of summer, you might get an inch of roots on that grass and it just sits there until the soil cools off. If we're doing it in fall or spring, we've had a game 2 weeks after sod installation before. What I would suggest, if we could, in my ideal world, is whatever we're gonna do, let's start it. Let's know what we're gonna do. Let's make a plan, and after that last football game, we execute. And if it's grading, if it's irrigation, anything that we need to do before we plant grass, we do all of that. Fall, winter, as much as we can. You and I both know winter is pretty dicey with.
But again,
much we
you
can
said
do.
plant grass. You mean apply sod, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll try to be more clear. And then we would lay the sod. February, March is a phenomenal time. You lay the sod and it's totally brown, but the roots are still growing. By the time it greens up on the top, the roots are in there. It's relatively easy to keep it wet at that time of year. You're not throwing water all the time every day. It's besides October, November, February, March is my favorite time to lay sod. But we've got that February, March, and we start working backwards of what do we need to do before that.
Yeah. Do you have any local fields, that you've done recently and or doing now?
Yes. The three of us went on a little tour of fields that we worked on. We can go and look at those at any point you want to. If we want to look at fescue or Bermuda or bluegrass, they're all within 30 miles.
Really? Okay. Since you guys seen all our choices, what was your opinion?
Opinion as to what,
What was the better grass?
Type of grass.
we can go look at Hutch High new soccer field, it's kicking butt.
What?
Bluegrass.
Oh, it's bluegrass.
Really?
Yeah. So go look at his yard, his fescue's kicked butt. You can go look at McPherson's Bermuda Field, it's kick butt.
Well, you're helping a lot there, John. Thank you.
So it just depends if you want brown field.
See, now I got him doing it.
Yeah.
They've just been mowing and mowing and mowing. Look at them. They're
Time to
exhausted.
mow. Tuesday and Friday at 3 o'clock.
My boys are gonna be so thrilled when I go home and tell them they're mowing twice a week now.
Yeah.
I've been going twice a week for years. If I don't, it gets overrun.
The
So
number-
what? That really didn't help me, John. So what? You did, I mean, there again. I mean, fescue obviously is in the middle of the road. What did I mean? What was your thoughts on fescue?
I think a fescue field would be awesome. I mean, we could mow it at 2 inches.
Okay.
Economically.
You know, I think
Then our practice field, we could turn it to Bermuda.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
and that would save some water.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about playing soccer and football in the same field.
I mean, I don't know how long you wanna get in the conversation, but I just don't think there's any way to play soccer on a grass field. There's no way of having the band. I mean, I don't wanna bring up artificial turf, but that's probably another conversation, but if you want band, soccer, football on the same field, you gotta look at a turf field. There's just,
You know,
I
your
don't think there's
springtime
any-
is all your repair time for your football,
Yeah.
you know, and
or otherwise you're gonna have, and I hate to use this word, you're gonna have an adequate field all the time instead of a exceptional.
And we'll be spending a lot of money
A lot of money
on an adequate field.
on an adequate field that you always have to worry about water.
Yeah. You know,
that's the thing Brett said, you know, our issue is water.
And
and
you're rolling the dice every year about
Right.
water. And you can talk about breaking violating water rights, having an application. As a rule follower, you want,
The question is, do we wanna have a softball field? If we had a softball field on campus, which I think that's always been our vision.
That's a
You
huge
know,
goal.
What a great environment to have baseball and softball right next to each other, and, great evenings on Tuesday and Friday nights, you know, and family environment. Now you're talking 5 fields that were watered.
yeah.
which really is impossible. I hate to use the word impossible, but for 5, if you have a turf football field, you Bermuda the softball field or the soccer field and the practice field, now you have a tremendous amount of water for the baseball, softball.
Yeah.
That would always look nice. Now we go from adequate fields to exceptional fields, every field. And, I mean, you don't wanna hear us talk about turf, but I've got you in there for the Bermuda practice and soccer. Sure, Brock has a $1.2 million proposal for a turf football field, a new track, and a softball field. That's an incredible deal.
Well, let's see it.
It's right here. It's right here. And then I can tell you, you know, I hate to use the B word, coming from Bueller, the biggest reason Bueller had added a turf football field was for the band. Because the band's on it every day, the first 9 weeks of school for the marching season.
Where's our band at?
They're on the soccer field.
They're on the soccer field. And
Every
they
day.
go out there and it's at 8:30 in the morning, the grass is all wet. So they march, their shoes and socks are all soaking wet every morning. If it rains, they're not out there at all. I mean, if you look at a turf field per use, because I'm gonna tell you right now, if we get a grass field, we don't want the band on it.
No.
If you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a grass field, it's gonna be used for 4 home football games, 3 or 4 home JV football games, and 4 junior high football games. 12 to 16 times a year for hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you're gonna look to do anything to make it nice.
Can I use the B word too?
Where if you, hold on, if you would think about a turf field, the band's gonna be on it every day, the first 9 weeks of school. The PE classes are gonna be on it. The football team's gonna be on it every day. The soccer team's gonna be on it every day. It's gonna get used, it'll be the most used facility in our district. I mean, you know the Lend Lease costs and all that, the down payment. I mean, I think you can spend your money extremely wise, your initial upfront cost is gonna be pretty good. But for the future, I've heard you talk a lot about the future, thinking about the future of Nickerson. If we could think about this vision and this goal, you'd have Nickerson set up for athletic fields forever. If you have a synthetic turf field, a new track that you have a 5 to 7 year maintenance plan, so in 25 to 30 years, it's still a nice track, because that's not what happened to our track now, correct?
Correct.
That's why it looks the way it does. And then you Bermuda the soccer and the practice field, so you're not taking care of it. You're not spending a lot of money on maintenance. Now you have, again, you know, we get him to whatever it costs for the softball, baseball field, 30 or 40,000 to take care of all that stuff. You have exceptional athletic facilities forever, instead of every year being adequate and being scared to death about water. Because if you spend all this money and you put a grass field in, and we have a 2012 drought, his biggest pitch is if you don't have water, it doesn't matter what you do. And he's confident about getting water. I'm not that confident. We've tried to get water in the past. Been turned down every time.
And I don't know, can you guys remember, I thought we went over our allocation and got gigged one year, and we couldn't have as much water the following year. We did go over our allocation, we got penalized for it, I know that. Was that during your guy? I can't
I
remember how long
remember
ago
that.
that's
I
been.
don't remember. All I know is you brought up that third well, and I didn't think we were supposed to be using that third well because there's no meter on it.
That's probably correct.
I'm just saying. Just like you say. So,
So
so I never put it in perspective there, John. Thank you for bringing that up. As far as use per dollar would be huge, because I never thought of it as far as say 12 football games.
If you have a nice grass field, we're not gonna want a lot of activity on it, because we're gonna want it
You're
to be
right.
nice. And so it's gonna be used 15 times a year. And if you have a turf field, again, it's gonna be used every single day, with the exception of December, January, maybe February, when it's freezing. But you'll have PE classes, weight training classes, the sports teams practice.
I hate to use the P word, which is Pratt, but they have baseball bases and softball bases on their football field, because they'll do infield on it. Now, they don't have soccer, they don't
If
have
it
boys
rains.
and girls soccer.
Yeah.
If it
But
rains,
they'll do baseball and softball infield on it, on the
Let's
turf
hear-
field in the springtime.
Your output. You had a comment.
B, you're gonna use the B word.
Yes.
Bueller word.
Bueller.
Was Bueller's football field all right? Their grass field?
It was, you took that field and it was very nice.
But they didn't do anything else on it.
How many events do you think they had a year on it? Because I know the number.
Oh, this
Oh,
is
per
guess
fall.
and check.
I could say.
It's a game show.
Yeah.
It was JV, junior high, and varsity football games.
Between varsity football, if the junior high was not on it Thursday afternoons for their games, the varsity football team was on it.
For an
J-
hour.
JV football, band, the
The
little,
band didn't use it
once a week, every Thursday.
because they built a grass field over by the Bueller
Yeah.
Grade Elementary School. They made a grass band practice field for them,
So
which was, when it rained, it was muddy and they couldn't use it, and so.
So every Thursday morning, the band was on it, and then the kiddie leagues on Saturdays, there was 54 events on that field every fall.
Because they had 2 Saturdays of fall, I believe, there would be 4 games.
54. But
And
you're
everybody-
comparing it. Somebody weighs 30 to 50 pounds to 250
Agreed.
to yeah.
Man, John, you
But-
made
but
me
to
go
say-
from grade 3 to grade 1.
But to say that it's
I know
10
that.
events is not accurate either.
Yeah.
We can do a lot more than 10 events with a grass field.
But I guess my argument would be that we are a prime candidate for a turf field because of our water situation. We're never gonna have enough water for all our fields, and they're always gonna be,
Not if we had another one. We're already short.
if we build I don't see how we can build a softball field if we're not gonna have a turf football field. You know, plus if you build a turf football field, you take all that dirt and that's where you build your softball field with. Cause that's the biggest expense to build a softball field is to bring in all the dirt. Well, we're taking it right from there. So again, your initial cost is gonna be, I don't think it's that high when you think about what you're getting. And then for the future, if you Bermuda the soccer field and the practice field, your cost in the future are low.
Brett,
30 years from now.
if we were going to move a bunch of dirt out of our football field, a lot of that would not be the good top 6-inch soil. A lot of that dirt would be the poor, the clay, to move it on the softball field. Isn't that right?
I don't know that I can speak to how much soil they want to take out of there.
Okay.
It wouldn't all be something that you would want to put on the top of the softball field, but
No, but if
softball
if
field
he's
is
talking in
much
his
smaller.
scenario as far as
Yeah.
moving the dirt to put
They're gonna
turf,
take probably at least a foot. Foot to
And-
18 inches.
And I think you probably still have to truck more in, but those.
I would say so too. But you're not growing grass on this field, so it doesn't matter if it's rock, stone, or clay. So you still have your
You'll have
quote
a lot
unquote
of-
6 to 8 inches of football or of topsoil.
You know,
Yes, you'll probably have to have
dirt
more.
just to fill in the hole out
Yes.
there on the softball field. And they said that's the big expense of the turf field is hauling that dirt off, where we just haul it across the alley.
Sell it. Somebody wanna haul it off, we can sell it.
Brett, with you, how do we? What's the next step with you? I mean, what do we have to, as a board? What do you need? From us. We've got to pick grade level. We've got to pick irrigation level, drainage level, and then what other things do we?
it's
I think you missed something.
Grass level.
We need to make sure we get some more water. Could you
now I can
talk-
say I'm glad you asked. Now, first thing I would recommend, give me a shot at it. I think I can get you more water.
When would you have an idea that they wouldn't say no for sure? I mean, when would you have a good feeling like, hey, or oh boy?
I think I have a not to exceed number of $3,000 to get water rights. The vast majority of the time, with that one failure that I was telling you about, but we knew that very early on that
Yeah.
this is not going to go well.
You had that vibe early.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we get to $1,000, typically we're done. Most of the time, $1,000 gets it. I hand you a smaller stack of papers. I hand you 6 or 8 sheets of paper. Somebody gets to sign them, and you put a check in it for a few $100s. Then it starts working its way through the state. But for $500, we're gonna have a good idea. Until the board sits around like this and votes on it, no one's gonna make any commitment.
Yeah.
No one's gonna stick their neck out and go, yeah, it's a done deal. But
Now, with that being said, can we be allowed more water per these wells? I mean, do we know that these wells are capable?
I have not seen anything. Right now, you're limited to 100. The rate is limited to 150 gallons a minute. Okay, you could probably exceed that if you ran them both at the same time, but we're shooting to make these zones a little bit smaller. I don't believe that's what you're asking me. You're asking for the total quantity.
I just want to make. Do we have to? Yeah, basically, would we have to allocate another well to get what we need?
Probably not.
Okay.
It's always an option. It might be more efficient to say, let's do one well with the drive and a good pump and that sort of thing instead of fighting with these 2 different ones. It might be something that you like, but I don't foresee right now a reason why you would need to put in any more wells.
Okay. Well, I guess I worded it wrong. Would these 2 wells yield enough? if we basically just made it look good on paper where, okay, we can go from 27 to 36 or 46.
From everything I've seen, yes.
Okay.
So you were saying earlier that 48 was kind of the number you was looking at.
Yeah, I'd get you up into the 40s.
So would they come and say, well, we'll give you 35?
Maybe. I asked big.
Yeah.
Right. But they would,
It's possible. The management district board is mostly a bunch of farmers, and they're going to look at the regulations, and they're going to say, is there a reason we shouldn't do this? One of them will pop up as, yes, your wells are 660 feet apart instead of 600 feet apart like they want to see. They've already granted you a waiver for that in the past, which means it's a pretty good chance they're going to do it again. The other thing is they're going to say, well, he's asking for 3 acre-feet of water, 3 feet per acre, and the maximum that we're supposed to give out is 1.3. Well, I give them turf grass data. 1.3 is corn or soybeans. Okay, we're irrigating corn or soybeans from maybe in June. How long do you irrigate? End of June
Yeah.
to middle of August.
That's.
I was gonna say first of May. You could be applying a 3/4 inch now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
But you're in
turf grass.
Yeah.
I'm talking about watering in February already
Yeah.
in this meeting,
You're right.
and into November, and the ETs are very similar to corn. So we give them ET data and say, this is why we're asking for this much. Well, okay, makes sense. So far, I got a pretty good batting average. But
And you're dealing with a lot smaller acreages too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Deal.
You're
It's
not
not a
dealing with
quarter.
quarters. Yeah. Or
yeah, we're talking about 15 acres.
Yeah.
yeah.
And we haven't even talked to the city of Nickerson yet.
Correct.
And that well north of Nickerson is a very good well, very good water that they drilled 10, 15 years ago. They shut one of their other ones down. And I was on the city council when we did that.
So one of the very first things we need to maybe come together as a board and pass a resolution to give you go ahead and get that water deal.
You don't have to do that.
We don't.
No, you can just say you want me to instruct Brett to go ahead. It's under $10,000, so I have the authority.
Can we do that right now if we want? Can we talk about it? I would be in favor of doing that. What's everybody else think?
So make sure it doesn't sound like a motion or a vote. Just, is there a consensus?
Is there? Yeah.
I think
Is
we
it
need to do that and see where we're at. I think we got, and then we can go with the plan,
Straight.
what John said, or otherwise, or combination, or
Now, you're not sticking your neck out very far here, and if you get it,
No.
it's yours forever.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know what comes down the road.
Yeah.
So.
If you're going to have grass on campus,
Yeah.
let's look at this. If it's the front lawn, if it's a softball field, whatever it is.
Is it? No.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
If we get turned down with this, I'll say John's right.
If you get it, I'll slap you high five. And buy you a burger.
From a distance.
Okay, then after that, but let's say because your timeline, let's say we are headed towards a grass field,
Right.
you'll need to know fairly soon to keep that slot right after football season open. So, what do we need to kind of back to grading level,
Correct.
everything, and then the kind of grass?
Right.
Is there
So-
anything else?
No, if we could walk our way through those things there. Number one, if we want to talk at the rock bottom, we want to make what you have work. Okay? So if we talked about that, you're talking irrigation level 1 or 2. Fix a few basic things. We're talking, we've already talked about water rights level 1, okay? Grading level 1, a heavy top dressing is taking about 4 times as much sand as we put down every year and do it in one shot. Okay, you guys know what a speed mover is.
Yep.
Okay, we have a speed mover that we've modified to where we took the cutting edge off and built our own cutting edge so that it cannot cut soil. It can't, we're gonna use it on top of your existing grass. And we stage this sand all over your field, and we drag this thing around, and it's basically a concrete screed. It acts like a screed. It's just gonna make a level, smooth surface. It's not gonna change your grade. It's not gonna make it more than 2%, less than 2%. It's gonna make what you have smooth and safe now.
So level out some of these spots.
Some of these little,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a less than 8 foot wide deviation.
Okay.
So if you're seeing it on there, that's a 50 foot wide grade.
Right. Wow.
This is gonna be those ankle turning spots. Something that's gonna be less than 8 feet wide. The machine is 8 feet wide.
Okay.
So it makes it smooth right now. And then we can overseed on top of that in the spring just like we typically would. And then we'd haul in some topsoil, we'd raise those players boxes, especially the home side. Right now they hold water, so you get a rain Friday morning, you got water sitting there Friday night for the game. So we've got tons of room because the field is so high in the middle. We've got plenty of room to raise this edge a little bit and and push that water to the drains.
Yeah.
If we go to the other end of that, grading 3 is strip all the topsoil, make a subgrade,
Turn it all around.
you go from there.
Okay.
Irrigation 1, all we're doing is rezoning zones 8 and 9 into 4 zones, replacing sprinkler heads and give you a new controller. So you can have the Wi-Fi controller that talks to Dano. If we go to 2, we're talking about a new sprinkler system. So then we can start talking about submersible pumps and motors and different main line and things like that. Even within level 2, we have a big discussion there of what you could want to see there.
Yeah.
Okay, these numbers are, I have not gotten my subcontractors or my suppliers in on this at this point. It's just based on past experience. This is kind of a number I'd throw out. It's a place for us to start saying, if we want this, what might we plan on for a cost? Irrigation 3, we haven't talked about this at all. The 3 of us did subsurface drip irrigation. Instead of sprinklers that spray the water above the ground, this irrigates everything below the ground. So no runoff, no evaporation.
Is that what like Brent was asking about?
Yeah. How far away, how wide is your tapes?
18-inch spacing, 12-inch emitter spacing. That's based on soil types, so we're gonna look into that a little bit more. Yours might tighten up a little bit, but typically 18 by 12. Turf grass, the page that we had talked about in the middle of the report has a lot more information about turf grass. The 3 of us have really 75% of everything we've talked about has been fescue, but the direction I went with it, I think it'd be a great place for you. But that's installing sod and then a maintenance top dressing right on top of it, gets you off on the right foot. It helps any gaps that might be in it, helps close them up. Drainage.
Hold on 1 second.
Yes, sir.
On a drip, I mean, would you have to, can you install that, say, if we just did grading 1 or 2? Would you have to do a grading 3 to do this?
I would suggest making the grade whatever your final answer is. Because if you move any soil at all, it's going to be totally ineffective. The drip system will be totally ineffective. So whatever it is, you're done. We can put it on anything. We could put it on what you have right now. We did that on a baseball field in Garden City 3 years ago. It's exactly what they had. Was it pretty? Had a little bit to be desired, but they said, hey, we're happy, go. Okay, but if you decide you wanna change the grade in the future, the drip system's done. So, it's up to you. Yes, it can go on what you have right now.
How deep is that installed?
We install it 6 inches deep, we core aerate to 4 inches deep every year on top of that. And every year we gain about 1/8 of an inch. It's shallow enough, it does have to be blown out for the winter. One of the good things about drip is each emitter has a check valve in it, so as we start getting slope on the field, the low emitters don't drain out. The drip line itself can freeze, it has enough elasticity that it doesn't break. All the PVC pipe that feeds it will break.
Then you got a good drip system the next year.
Not very even, but the drainage number one is take the drains that are there right now, lift the inlets up, and then fill around them, just so it's not as severe going into there. We've got some elevation to give there. It's kind of an easy victory, but it gives you just a little bit more of a gentle slope, both coming off the field and from the players' boxes, north and south. Drainage 2 is the one that is a typo completely. Scribble that out and put a 90 in there.
Over 100.
Yeah. I'll say John's right, or I agree with John already. If you're looking at putting $90,000 so you can play soccer on the field, that's a lot of mowing and a lot of maintenance on a soccer field you already have. It'd be a lot of money to put more use on one field when you've already got a place to play. And I don't wanna try to talk you out of hiring us to do work, but it's a lot of money for not a lot of gain. The fertility levels, and we're talking about doing one shot, trying to make as big of an impact as we can on pH. If we can go to level 2, we're definitely gonna wanna start tilling those in. We can't do just a whole lot putting it on the top. It gets a little harsh on the grass. But that's definitely something that I have gypsum in this plan here. That helps to mitigate the effects of the water. It's not really gonna change pH. It helps with, I'm just anticipating a water test result here.
Guessing the sodium's very high.
Yeah,
So fertility level 2, we really couldn't do grading level 1.
correct.
Yeah, but we could do 2 or 3.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Bid documents, what we do at Turf Solutions is design, build, and maintain sports fields. And we have customers that do everything from, we want this right here, and Turf Solutions is the only company that does it, and we're gonna single source this thing. We have ones that do something similar, from what I've heard. We have some competing proposals. This one has merits, this one has merits. We like this one. We have one on complete other end of that spectrum where a lot of this, if we come in and do it, it's my goal to build you a football field. Hey, to us, the engineering and all that is something that happens on the way to it. So most of this, a lot of these numbers, my intent is, it's all in there, okay? A lot of proposals don't include things like stormwater pollution prevention plans or, different things like that. Stormwater pollution can be a tremendous cost. Editorial, it keeps the dirt out of the environment. The EPA is all over this thing lately. You see the black fence about this tall around every construction site? As part of a stormwater pollution prevention plan. They don't want the dirt here leaving over here during a rainstorm. Again, there are rules and exceptions. We could write a whole book on the thing. But in short, if you go out and till up 80 acres, that's fine. If I go till up 80 acres, not fine. I have to put a black fence around it. So there's things like that that to say you're gonna, it depends on where it's at, and every governing agency is a little bit different in what they want to see, and every project is a little bit different. As far as can we take this route or sneak over here? Again, there's exceptions to every rule and rules for every exception. You gotta know which ones to walk your way around. But the bid documents depends on how extensive of work we're doing, how extensive you want the documents to be. But it can be a set of documents that you hand to another contractor or 4 other contractors and go, bid this. So it's gonna have stamped engineered drawings. It's gonna have the a topographical survey. The topographical survey is current grade and it's sea level elevations. It's all the utilities are gonna be in it. It'll have the stormwater pollution plan in it. So it isn't, I don't know what you guys are looking at in the black folders, but a lot of times it's gonna say at the bottom of it, oh, by the way, this doesn't include a stormwater prevention plan, because I understand they don't know. Okay, they haven't gotten into it that deep. But to say that that's gonna put $20,000 on it is a definite possibility. We're gonna know that. We're gonna have the plan, it's gonna be written up. We're gonna hand those documents to the contractor and say, this is what you do. This is what's gonna meet the state's requirements. They'll have an irrigation design. It will have specs on pipe, it will have specs on sprinkler heads, on what connects the pipe to the sprinkler head, to the controller, to what connects the wires to the valves. Every piece of material that goes into the field, it will spec installation practices. This is how we put this in the ground. Things like compacting trenches. Nobody compacts their trenches in the turf grass industry, except Turf Solutions. Because you come back 3 years later and now it's doing this in the middle of your football field, and what are you gonna do now? Heavy top dressing, right? So it's going to specify not only what we're gonna put in the ground, but how we're gonna put it in the ground. It's gonna specify things just to prevent that problem. There is no trenching on the playing surface. Once we get this grade right, the only way something's going in there is a vibratory plow, because it's not gonna settle. So that goes back and affects our irrigation design. It's we're not gonna be running 3-inch pipe, because a machine that's supposed to be on a field where we're growing grass is gonna be way too big if it's gonna plow 3-inch pipe in the ground.
Yep.
It's going to specify we're gonna have these soil amendments. We're gonna, one, know that we're tilling it up and know the soil amendments we're gonna put in there. We're gonna say, based on the soil tests, this is what this contractor needs to put in the ground for amendments. It needs to till it in this deep. We're gonna specify contractor qualifications. You ask about our other projects. Part of our specs is give me a list of customers of people that you've, maybe it's laid sod, maybe it's put in an irrigation system. One of it is a turnkey system. 3 sports fields, turnkey system, start to finish, the grading, the irrigation, the sod, everything. I wanna talk to these people. I wanna go see them. It might be install a variable frequency drive and a submersible pump and motor. It might be the grading part of it. Give us someone that you've done grading for on a sports field of at least 2 acres. We're going to specify equipment. The grading equipment that comes in that we're gonna, the whole point of this thing would be to grow grass. Okay, so the big heavy equipment that some guy just used to build a parking lot or the interstate is not appropriate to be on your sports field. And if we're moving so much dirt, if we wanna do grade 3, we're gonna have some big stuff in there. After that big stuff is in there, what do we need to do to relieve the compaction? And once, typically it's tillage. Okay?
Yeah.
And we're gonna go in there, we're gonna do tillage. Now we have to regrade it again.
Yeah.
So what are we gonna use? Now we're going back to typically we're specifying tractor weight. What type of equipment we're gonna use, how big of a tractor is this gonna be. We're not gonna bring a 9230 out here and do final grade with it.
That'd look cool though.
That would look well. If we're doing the grade 3,
Not
it
really.
probably will be.
It would not. Just hold on really quick before I forget this. On this one, fertility level 2, that would just be for the football field. These
Correct.
back pages are for everything.
The colored pages
That-
with the colored numbers.
Yes, would be blue, and then the
Right.
other colors
What-
would be add-ons.
Correct. What these guys asked me for in our original meeting was some maintenance numbers to take care of the sports fields, 4 of them.
Okay.
So that's where that document came
Okay.
from. Yeah, fertility 2 is gonna require something to be tilled up.
Yeah.
Fertility too.
The last thing that we specify in a construction document is grow-in maintenance. Grow-in is get it from brand new sod to something that basically resembles mature grass. So that we're not laying down sod out there and go, good luck, see you later. It's gonna be 3-4 weeks of, hey, help us baby this thing along, get it
Yeah.
started, get us off on the right foot. Then if you wanna go to the colored numbers,
Mm.
let's go with the colored numbers. But we like to put support in there after that sod's rolled out, cause it's a lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like bringing home a 2-acre baby.
Brett, I got a question. What if, when we got around to okaying something, and let's say we decided to have you, and you're already booked, but we went ahead and did the track. Do you feel comfortable crossing a brand new track and doing any one of these grades? Let's say grading level 3.
Grade 3 was the only one that would make me a little nervous. Simply because of that 9230 we talked about.
Yeah.
If we have to bring, if we were to go through, before we get to that point, we're gonna go through more engineering than my 50-foot grades, and we're gonna know cut fill quantities, and we're gonna know exactly at the drainage / grading level that you guys want to achieve, do we have the dirt?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that makes me nervous at all is if you wanna put these channel drains out here,
Yeah.
cause there is a monster to fill right here.
Yep.
If we're not doing channel drains, I'm not concerned about having enough dirt. But if we wanna go to 3, there's gonna be some heavier equipment coming across. We put multiple levels of plywood down over it. Basically what's under most tracks is an asphalt road.
Yeah.
But that one, we'd wanna talk further about that.
Okay.
And know exactly what we're doing and when it's happening. Yeah, I'd love to coordinate it.
Yeah.
So they're kinda happening together.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that is the track companies don't ever tell you this until about the day that they're putting the rubber surface on. By the way, for the next 3 weeks, you can't run any irrigation. I say, if you do, your warranty's void. And so everyone turns the irrigation off. I go, well, most of the time they're wanting to put tracks down in the summertime because they like the heat to do it. 3 weeks, no water? You really want that on your brand new football field? And I always go, question, what if it rains? Is my warranty void? Well, no, so why is irrigation water different?
Yeah, why is it?
I've never had an answer. I'd like your guy to tell me that when he does it.
Huh.
But it's definitely I have never seen
Less water versus the sprinkler heads.
almost always. We did a test at Koch Industries in Wichita. They were just wanting to play with it. So we did a parking lot island. A parking lot island's as big as this table, right? Not Koch Industries. Koch Industries, it's 8 feet wide and 400 feet long. And at the time, I think there was 8 of those. So we did one of them on this side of the road, and it had its twin brother on this side of the road that was sprinklers. we put subsurface drip in it, and we put a water meter on both of them. We put a 1-inch water meter on subsurface drip because it was running 15 gallons a minute to do all that water. We were actually put a pressure regulator on it because the incoming pressure was too high. And on the other side, we put a 3-inch water meter on it. They were running 90 gallons a minute at 90 PSI through sprinklers. Now, the run times are not even close because we're putting water down so much more slowly. At the end of the summer, we took pictures. It was within the ability of the meter to read, okay? With thousands of gallons is all it read. It was exactly half of the water. And they said it could have been better, but we were just playing around with it. That is the data that I have on it. Okay? There's California Institute for Irrigation Technology. It's an acronym most of the time. They've done tests on it. It's always a lot less because you're not losing anything to evaporation. You're not losing anything to runoff. There are 2 times when you are not going to like to have a drip system. The first one is the day that we put it in, because we're going to plow this thing in the ground, and you're going to have these channels with the drip line sitting in the bottom of it. And that plow kind of slicks off the edge of those channels, and the water just wants to run back and forth in the channels instead of absorbing out into the soil. Typically it takes freeze thaw, rain, something like that to heal that back together. The other day that you're not going to like it is when you go to seed or put down insecticide, something that the insecticide you need to water it in. The seed, we need to keep that top 1/8 of an inch wet all the time. Drip is, you can do it, but you're going to flood, you're going to totally saturate the top 12 inches.
Boy.
It's going to be, you're not going to want to walk on it, it's going to be running 24/7 just to do that. So in a situation where you've already got sprinklers out there, let's put it around the sprinklers. So now that day that you want to seed, that day you want to water in insecticide, you kick on the sprinklers. If it's insecticide, you run 1 cycle, water it in, go back to drip. So you've got the best of both worlds at that point. Drip is phenomenal at maintaining soil moisture. It stinks at replacing soil moisture. So if you let it get dry, if you get behind, it has to run a lot to catch up.
Can it keep up in, like, says a drought like we had just a few years ago?
Yes.
It can.
It's the easiest to keep up. It'll keep up, if you're running proper run times, it'll keep up better than anything else because the wind doesn't affect it, the heat doesn't affect it. We can change our lateral spacing, we can change our emitter spacing within the line, and we can change the emitter rates. So we can run a broad range of emitter rates. We size it for your soil. Yours is a little bit sandier, so maybe tighten it up a little, maybe raise the rates a little bit. But it's all about proper design of the thing. If it's designed right and it's run well, and running well it's just different. It's not better or worse than sprinklers. It's just a total different theory.
With that being said, would our pumps and everything have to be changed to run this? To run drip?
I have not looked into that.
You'd almost have to go with variable, wouldn't you, to slow the thing down?
Well, the thing with drip is it doesn't need nearly the pressure. So on a sprinkler head, we still need that last sprinkler head to have 60 PSI at it and running a lot of gallons per minute. If we get to drip, we need the last emitter to have 20 PSI. So our inlet pressure will let us know how far we can run in one lateral. So 60 PSI inlet is enough to get us across most fields. And I'm not seeing anything that's 60 here yet, but we would need to test the output of your pump.
Sure.
And see how high a pressure can this thing get to 60, and when it does, how much water is it putting out?
How much volume, yeah.
And then we need to see, your field is really long. Since that east end is all grass, there's no high jump pits cutting that out. So we need to figure out where we might make one zone be the east end and one zone be the west end and run goalpost to goalpost, let's say, just to get our runs shorter. There's a couple variables of what is your pump gonna put out and how long do we want one lateral to be.
Yeah.
So do we know how much water we use on the football field?
I think we
Now.
do, but I don't know. I think Dano's
I'm
got
sure
that.
Dano has that
Yeah,
information.
because I've seen it before, but I don't remember.
So if I might make a suggestion, we had a lot of information this evening and very different information. And we appreciate your time, thank you. And so there's no action in tonight's board meeting. So maybe you wanna look over your information, talk about it, look at it. And at the June, it's 22nd.
Yes.
22nd board meeting, then make some decisions in terms of what you wanna do. If Brent is not on the state bid list, is that correct?
That's correct.
So anything that is $20,000 or more, that you wanna do with Brent's company, Turf Solutions, will have to go out for bid. It doesn't mean that you can't select him, but you have to give other people the opportunity. You have to have a competitive bid. Mid-America is a whole different, I mean, you're comparing apples and oranges, right? So Mid-America is on the state bid list. I know Brock gave you some additional information. If you have questions in the meantime, you have both their email addresses, or you can funnel those through me, whichever you'd like to do. So, that sound like a solution?
Everybody get their questions answered from Brett?
Do you have any other pending people like us that might delay, might come in and say yes ahead of us?
Probably nobody that's further along than you are yet.
Okay.
We're working with, hopefully we always have a little bit of a full pipeline.
Yeah. But Brett, our next meeting is.
I like to eat in December too, you know.
Yeah.
But our next meeting's June 22nd. If we decided that, is that soon enough for us to get in a slot? Or is that
We'd have
pushing?
to go out for bid, so.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
But what I'm saying is, do we maybe need a special meeting prior to kind of speed up the process?
To
You know,
go-
because it does go out for bid and
To
see.
go out for bids, but we would need, to get engineering back in a month would be fast. So if that's a direction that you would like to go, we need to get that, like she mentioned, to give other contractors a bid packet.
Yep.
That process, a month
we
would be
do our
quick.
own specs. I do the RFP.
The what?
I would do the request for proposal.
There would be the engineering specs though and all that, like those typically need to be stamped drawings. They need to have the cut fill quantities, all that the contractor wants to see as far as.
No, when I've gone out for bid before, I do a request for proposal that has the specs that in general. And then those come back and we open those and
Sure.
look at those and determine. And then after that, the engineering drawings and the stamps or architect or whatever it takes comes after that.
That would be a specifically different path than what we take. And at that point, we would probably bow out. Ours are very tight specs, down to every sprinkler head, down to all these things that we talked about before.
Mhm.
All of those things are spec'd so that you know what you're getting up front and you know what it costs. If all of those things happen afterwards, one, the quality control's not there, and two, the cost control's not there. You're not
So-
knowing what you get up front.
And I think we're talking about two different things, because I'm
Definitely.
talking in general, So by Kansas state law, anything that is $20,000 or more that's not on the state bid list, we're required to put out an RFP, required that we do it. So then that's the broad piece. And what you're talking about, from my perspective, is much more
The next level.
specific.
Yeah.
The
So
bid
that
specs
would-
definitely come from you,
Right.
but we give you, if you were to hire us to do what I was describing earlier, we would give you that data. Because it's very difficult for a contractor to bid earth-moving, let's say, without the grade data. You get,
So I would have to talk to an attorney at KASB, because that's never how I've done it before. So I would have to get some information, because it seems, it's different to have somebody who wants to bid on a package, prepare the package. I've never had that ever done before. And I did a big bond project in Ottawa, so,
sure,
Yeah.
it's a totally different process. And
we have a guided process that we have to
Sure.
go through as a governmental entity, so I can find that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But my question is, do we need to speed up and have another special board meeting possibly sooner than June 22nd to allow all of the red tape to kind of,
I think we need to have something so we're getting, so we don't have 6 different ideas and try to come down to one.
on June 22nd?
Yeah.
We have another one in between.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, June 22nd is harvest. I mean, it looks like it's going to be dead center. So that's why I'm thinking maybe stepping up the process a little bit and possibly
Well,
thinking about
if we
that.
just have a special meeting to, like I said,
Get on the same page.
all of us to absorb
Yeah.
this information and because he's got a whole different pages of different things that we would choose from if we went with him. So we don't know if it's going to be 175,000 or 375,000.
Right.
So
Depending on what we produce. So, okay.
So we need to have something in between. I don't know when, but something.
It's going to rain in a couple of days. So, okay.
Actually, I probably would agree with you on that. 'Cause eating 2 snakes and a turtle yesterday.
Yep. They're headed for high ground. Any other questions for Brad or any of the guys or Rick, John?
I don't have his number, but I assume you must. So, because I know I got more questions. I just can't think of it right now.
His number might be on some of this. Brett, your number on any of this?
It's on this, if not.
Oh, hey. You came and gave
Yeah.
your card out already.
Yeah,
Remember?
and a flyer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
But I'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one.
Do you want this back? Since they're all stapled,
All right.
we'll get to-
Jeannie, is it? Do you have anything else to?
No.
I knew the answer to that.
Good grief.
Okay, if not, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
In a second, any discussion before I vote? Thank you again, Aaron,
Thank you
for showing up. Thanks again, Brett, Rick, and John.
very much.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
all in favor say yes.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carried.
Does this need to be done tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to
What?
stay here and do it.
I got
It's called homework.
That's right.
If you
That's
wanna take them
called
home and
being-
get them done, and then